forecast for Ottawa and the Valley. Here is City News weather specialist Denise Andreacci.
Sun and cloud today, a guaranteed high of 2 degrees. The winds are still breezy, gusts up to 50 kilometers per hour for Ottawa and Smiths Falls today. It's cold tonight, down to -9, so dress accordingly Friday morning. We are expecting some mixed precipitation tomorrow, at times just rain and at times just some snow. 5 to 10 millimeters, mixing with 2 to 4 centimeters, highs near +3. And then we climb to 10 degrees for Saturday. Rain to start, 5 to 10 millimeters, changing to some flurries as temps fall to -10 for Saturday night. This afternoon, a guaranteed high 2 degrees.
City News time is 10:01. Anyone who commutes to Carleton University won't be able to take the O train by the time the next semester begins in the fall. City News reporter Chris Corris with the story.
It was originally set to open in time for the fall 2022 semester, but we've got another slight delay, now possibly set to open in October of this year. That's if all the trial running goes well this summer. Anastasia Stoikos-Lettieri is the president and CEO of the Carleton Students Association and tells City News the latest delay is disappointing.
The continued delays really just make transportation to and from campus and, within campus really inaccessible.
She's calling on City Council and OC Transpo to ensure that the transit system is more reliable. Chris Curry, City News.
And Ottawa South NDP is organizing a rally in support of the striking Carleton University workers. It is scheduled for noon at the main entrance of the school at Bronson. They're gathering to support the workers who walked off the job on Monday to back their demand for a new contract. And the Canada Revenue Agency is moving towards automatic tax filing as the federal government increasingly relies on it to deliver income-tested benefits to Canadians. The CRA is launching a pilot program next year and will also present a plan to expand the service following consultations. Experts and advocates have called for automatic filing, and they say many vulnerable people have missed out on the Canada Child Benefit, the recent top-up to the Canada Housing Benefit, and the temporary doubling of the GST tax credit. And this weekend's Vanier 5K race will help celebrate the reopening of the Vanier Sugar Shack. The Sugar Shack at the Vanier Museo Park was destroyed by fire in August of 2020. Rideau Vanier Councillor Stephanie Plant is hosting the Vanier 5K run this Sunday and says the event would be used to showcase all of Vanier. The race will start at 9:30 Sunday morning at the Richelieu Vanier Community Centre. Tickets are $20 per person or $50 for groups of 3 to 5 people. All the proceeds will be used for the maintenance of the Museo Park. I am Damilola Unime for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us here on City News. I'm Sam Laprade. We have a very busy show for you today. We're going to be speaking with James Lockyer a little bit later. James is a name, James Lockyer's name you hear a lot when it comes to people that were wrongfully convicted. And James is going to talk about 2 sisters that have been conditionally released. We're going to speak with him a little bit later. And I think it's a day for lawyers. Lawrence Greenspan is going to join us as well. Lawrence is going to talk about some of the news regarding repatriating Canadians from Syria, which is a topic we've talked about a lot here on this show. So Lawrence Greenspan is going to join us. And Jagmeet Singh is going to be here as well. He is the NDP federal leader, of course. We're going to get a chance to speak with Mr. Singh, ask him about some of his reaction to some of the big topics, of course, of the day, including the federal budget, including Roxham Road. We're going to ask him as well about that supply and confidence motion. Does he have any regrets? I cannot wait to hear what he says. We're going to chance to chat with Jagmeet Singh a little bit later today. We know that a big topic for Canadians is any sort of foreign interference into the federal election. Well, there's been some conversations regarding maybe some foreign interference into Vancouver's 2022 election. We wanted to speak with Aaron Shull today, Managing Director and General Counsel for the Centre for International Governance Innovation. Hi, Aaron.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, Aaron. This is such an interesting topic. Lay it out for us a little bit. Give us a sense of what's being alleged here.
So just a quick word before we get into it. I'm also a lawyer, too, so you've now got 4 lawyers in a row, so I don't know if you're trying to bore your listeners to death or what, but I just wanted to put that caveat out there that I'm one, too. Don't hold it against me. Okay, so I'll try and explain this in plain English, right? So there's been allegations of foreign interference in the federal election. Now you're seeing it in the municipal election. And let's just assume the bulk of this is true, okay? I know there's a question about, is it they're leaks and they're classified, whatever. Let's just, for the purpose of our conversation, agree that at least some of it's true, okay? So assume that there was foreign interference. I think with the story about Vancouver right now is that the RCMP is not investigating, right? And so Canadians are saying, well, what's that all about, right? If you've got these credible allegations of foreign interference, shouldn't someone get charged? So what I thought I could do, if you agree, is try and explain it to your listeners in plain English about why it might not be the case that the RCMP is investigating and why they might not be seeking to charge anyone. Would that be an appropriate way to proceed?
I'm up for that, Aaron. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So there's 4 reasons, okay? So the first is something called Section 38 of the Canada Evidence Act. And what that actually means is this, is when you're doing intelligence, right? So if you're spying on, say, foreign actors in Canada, like our security services, they don't necessarily want their sources, like how they're figuring this stuff out, or their methods or their technology to be exposed in open court. So they're getting intelligence. When you go to court, you need evidence, and they're different. And here's what I mean by that. When you go to court and you're charged with something, you have the right to know the case against you. You've got a constitutional right. There's a case at the Supreme Court called Stinchcomb. There's a duty to disclose the entire case that the Crown has. And so how do you keep stuff secret that you want to keep secret and also make it open and disclosable to the accused? So there's already a tension in our system. So it could very well be that they're looking at this thing and saying, you know what, there's too much secret stuff here. We know that this case isn't going to go anywhere. So that's reason number 1.
Really interesting.
Right, and no, like people don't talk about that, but that's a thing, right? So, okay, second thing is that here we've got an allegation against the consulate of like the Chinese consulate in Vancouver. Well, the second problem you're going to run into is something called diplomatic immunity, right? Diplomats are immune from prosecution in Canada. There was that one Russian fellow who was so drunk he could barely walk. He killed somebody drunk driving in Ottawa, right? So and could not be charged under Canadian law because of diplomatic immunity. So even if you get over that first hurdle I talked about the intelligence to evidence thing, then you've got a problem with diplomatic immunity, because it's rare that someone is both a spy and a diplomat. Or I shouldn't say that. Like if you're a spy and a diplomat, you're people know, and you're not a very effective spy. Here, this is a little bit different because you've got someone who's a consular official who's alleged to be interfering in our process, and immunity might apply as well. So that's the third piece, the second piece.
Yeah, because part of it that I've read in researching for today is that the chief representative for the West Coast City came out and indicated they need. This was a quote, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the quote that I have is they needed to get all the eligible voters to come out and elect a specific Chinese Canadian candidate in terms of the mayoral race, and then also assessing a specific person to groom, quote unquote, groom as a counselor.
Yeah, and again, if these allegations are true, this is deeply problematic. So, like the primary tumor here is the foreign interference, right? Like that, I'm just explaining to people in a way that I hope is accessible why people aren't getting charged for this, right? Because we all agree if this stuff is true, it's terrible, right? It goes to the very core of our society. We have institutions that are built on trust. You trust that if you vote, your vote counts. You trust that if you vote and the winner is selected by virtue of getting the most votes, and then they get to lead, right? Like this is the whole way that a democratic society is built. So So this stuff is super, super serious. But I'm just trying to explain why there might not be charges coming.
Mm-hmm.
And the third reason is actually some of this stuff might be below the threshold of criminality. So what I mean by that is certainly it's, if true, super aggressive on the part of China. It's super disruptive, and it is deeply, deeply destabilizing to our relations. But these are sophisticated actors, right? These are not just people rolling in off the street. They know where the lines are, and they try and color within them, right? So influence campaigns on social media, for example, well, that might not be covered under electoral law. And so when we talk about influence, I think it's important for your listeners to understand that there is a range of stuff, much of which goes under the threshold of criminality. Some of it certainly would, once you start giving money and stuff like that, then you're really into the crosshairs at the federal level of the Canada Elections Act and all the rest of that. But it's important to know that there's a ton of stuff that goes on that's below the threshold of criminality too. Not friendly, not helpful, super destabilizing, incredibly aggressive, but not necessarily criminal. So that's the other thing that we got to contend with here.
And Aaron, let me ask you this. So when we think about, bad actors trying to influence foreign interference in elections, all of those three reasons that you just gave, they know those reasons as well. So there's no deterrent there from everything you just laid out.
No. Well, that's exactly when you're talking about sophisticated actors, and that actually buttresses my first point about this intelligence thing, because the second you start making disclosures or these types of issues become public, adversaries are watching that like a hawk, believe me, and they're looking for weaknesses in our system. They're trying to understand our sources. They're trying to understand our methods. So you have to be very, very careful with that, right? So when we are dealing with sophisticated adversaries on the other side, they're watching all of this, and for sure they know it. And there's one. I'll tell you a case that recently came, and your listeners, I will fall out of their chair when they hear this, but I'm going to say it anyway. So there was a case called R.V. Huang, Haung, that was recently prosecuted. Mr. Huang was alleged to have been part of the shipbuilding program. He got frustrated with his bosses, decided to exfiltrate documents on a flash drive, some of which were classified. He called the Chinese embassy in Ottawa as opposed to the consulate in Vancouver and said, "Hey, look, I'm willing to spy for you. I want to I want to contribute to your efforts." All the rest of that type of stuff. Well, unsurprisingly, CSIS had wiretapped that call, and they dispatched an undercover RCMP officer to meet with Mr. Huang. The RCMP officer meets with Mr. Wong. Mr. Wong basically restates what he'd already agreed to do, and they exchange a flash drive. Subsequently, he's prosecuted under something called the Security of Information Act. That part doesn't matter. But what does matter here is click forward, and Mr. Wong's case was dismissed because of unreasonable delay. In our court process, and I won't get into it under Section 38 of the Canada Evidence Act, and how we weigh that tension between what I talked about of intelligence and evidence and openness and secrecy. But the point is, you don't see a spy case ever like this, right? It's like the equivalent of the murderer walking into the police station, setting the gun on the counter and saying, "I did it." Mm-hmm. And we couldn't prosecute that. So my question is, what type of message does that send, right? So we've got a raft of problems that we're going to have to get our arms around, and we have to do it quickly because, as I said, let's assume that at least some of this is true, probably the bulk of it. And so this is what we face as a country. We are in a world now where I think our bubble of splendid isolation has been popped. We are, we live beside the Americans. We've got oceans on the other side, and so in our minds as Canadians, like, we're safe. We're all pretty chill people. Like, we like everybody. The world to us was a friendly place. It is not. So we need to get our act together in this country.
Oh, Aaron, I could talk to you for a day and a half, honestly. Thank you so much. Join us again here on City News, okay?
Yeah, anytime. And honestly, I'm happy to do it because this stuff, like I was saying to your producer, it seems complicated, but when you actually unpack it and you know what you're talking about, it's not. So I'm happy to try and demystify this for you anytime.
Very helpful. Aaron Shull joining us today, Managing Director and General Counsel for the Center for International Governance Innovation. We appreciate his insight today. When we come back, James Lockyer is going to be here. You know the name. He's a lawyer, and he has something very interesting to tell us today. Stay with us on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
On the next Fit Over 50, join us for some floor exercises. We'll be working the core, we'll be exercising your full body and stretching. We'll see you then.
Hi, I'm Justice. And I'm Nia. And we believe dreams fuel revolutions. That's why we're engaging with Canadian icons and the causes they support. Join us for these inspiring conversations and find out how you can be revolutionary.
Today, I helped a senior find transportation to an important medical appointment.
Today, I helped a new mom find virtual programming so she didn't feel so isolated.
Today, I helped someone understand new government supports.
Today, two leaders connect Canadians to critical government and community programs and services.
211. Help starts here.
I'm a singer-songwriter from Six Nations, and I've been writing songs about my experience, and with that being said, it's helped me hold hope in my heart in following my dreams and being resilient to everyday Indigenous battles.
Competition between spirit, earth, and wind, let me tell you now.
This song in particular, The Shiner, is a special song that I wrote for my grandfather. He was a snow snake maker, and that is a Haudenosaunee winter sport. It's my job to educate and to share, and the music allows me to do that.
He'll be shining snow snakes and mudcats to the end of his days.
Here comes the 67. They score! How's that for your first of the season? Another highlight reel goal. Perfect placement there on the one-time. What a play! Steps one, scores!
He is making a statement, isn't he?
Oh, that's a beauty of a shot from the freshman.
The OHL playoffs.
What a goal!
On Rogers TV.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Little brown girl,
Hey, I'm Picasso Win Von Teef. I'm so happy to be involved with Encore Ottawa Season 3. I can't wait for you guys to see what I have in store for you.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
I'm Sam Laprade. Thank you so much for joining us here on City News. Well, I know you know the name Guy Paul Moret. You know the name David Milgaard. You probably know the name Robert Baltovich, Stephen Trescott. All of these people have worked with James Lockyer, who joins me now. He's a lawyer with Innocence Canada. How are you, James?
I'm well, thank you. Good morning.
Thank you so much for your work and for what you've done. I've followed your career over the years, particularly followed the Robert Baltovich story, and really appreciate everything you've done. Today, we want to talk about two sisters. A murder in 1994. They have spent many, many years in prison. Walk us through this story a little bit, James.
Well, actually, the murder was in 1993. You're a year out. It's all right. It was in February of 1993, and they were arrested the same day, along with their cousin, for the murder of a man called Mr. Dolph. He had had them over at his home. He wasn't up to any good, I'm afraid. He made sexual advances to the two sisters, who were 18 and 20, respectively. And by the end of the night, the cousin had stabbed Mr. Dolph to death. And he subsequently pleaded guilty to the murder as a young offender and received a 5-year sentence. The two girls, however, pleaded not guilty and yet were convicted themselves of the crime, even though it wasn't alleged that they had stabbed Mr. Dolph to death. And that was sort of the end of it. They got life sentences, and nothing more was heard about the case until APTN News, the indigenous channel, did a documentary on their case, which led to them and David Milgaard, who had also been talking to the sisters, to contact me and ask if Innocence Canada would take on the case, and we agreed to do so. It quickly became apparent to us that the two girls, and I'll call them girls because that's what they were back in 1993, had been very badly mistreated by the RCMP in Kamsack, Saskatchewan. It's there's an indigenous reserve there called Kiskous, the Kiskous Nation Reserve, and on that basis, we are alleging that they took false confessions from the two sisters, in which they falsely confessed that they had played some role in the murder of Mr. Dolph by way of trying to restrain him, and one of them was accused of throwing an ornament at him, for example. We went to the Minister of Justice in Ottawa because that is the only remedy in a case like this, once all appeals have been lost and a person's convicted still. And the minister very quickly agreed that there was good reason to think there may have been a miscarriage of justice in this case, which then enabled us to bring a bail application for the sisters, pending the minister's final decision. And on Monday of this week, Mr. Justice Lay of the Saskatchewan King's Bench Court, ordered their release, pending the minister's ultimate decision on their case. That's a quick synopsis of the case, probably longer than your listeners would like. But
no, I really appreciate it. Actually, it really sets the stage for us. When you're meeting with people, and I listed a number of people there, and the list is much longer than that. And I encourage people to to look you up and to see exactly all the work you've done. But when you meet with somebody that basically has lost 20, 30 years of their lives, where do you even start?
You start slowly, actually. It may not be what you expected me to say. You get a grip on the case, and that takes a lot of time. You need to get trial transcripts, extra information that was available at the time of the trial. You need to interview the people, speak to the people at length who are saying they're wrongly convicted, speak to others, think about the case, let it sort of rest on you for a while you think it through. And that process, I was approached in 2020, in the fall of 2020, and I didn't really get going on it till the fall of 2021. It took me a year to get a hold of it, and then bring the application to the minister, which is a very slow process. I brought that application in December of 2021. And it was pretty quick. It was as early as June of last year that the minister advised that he thought this may have been a miscarriage of justice, which enabled us to bring a bail application, which took 9 months to actually getting them bail. And now we're probably looking at another year or two for the minister's decision. It's a slow process. You need a lot of patience, but there's a lot of work involved too. It's not something where you just say, "Hey, we got a wrongful conviction here." You got to show why it's a wrongful conviction, and that takes a lot of time, a lot of work, and a lot of people.
And James, let me ask you: when for instance, these sisters are released and they're sort of get some of their life back, how do you what's that conversation with them when you actually they've been sitting in incarcerated for so long, and you actually say to them, "Listen, there may be a bit of hope. You may be getting out." What's that conversation like?
Well, it's a good conversation, but it's a careful conversation. You never want to tell someone that we are going to get you out. You want to tell them we are going to do our best to solve your case. You never want to raise hopes too high, but on the other hand, you want to give some hope, and that's how I do it. That's how we do it at Innocence Canada. And in terms of what I said to them when they got released on Monday, I took them into a little office and with them and the people they're going to live with there, I sort of, dare I say, gave them a lecture. Please obey the conditions. They're not particularly onerous, the conditions that have been set down for your release, and let's keep you free. That's what this is all about, freedom.
Wow. And, I mentioned a number of people there, David Milgaard and Guy Paul Marley. These are names that, and Robert Truscott, those are names, and there's so many more there, but those are names that really do live on the hearts of Canadians because we followed their stories. Is this emotional for you? I mean, when we think about lawyers, we tend to think, you're following the law, but there has to be emotions here for you.
Oh, yeah. Of course there are. More often than not, it's a feeling of enormous relief that there's so much behind you when you finally get there. But of course, sheer pleasure, and insofar as I'm able, I keep in touch with the people. David Milgaard, for example, I kept in very close touch with him over the years, and was privileged to give the eulogy at his funeral in Calgary. He was such a magnificent man. But it's true of all of them. One of the things that gives me great hope for the sisters is that all the people that we've worked for in the past, and I can't think of an exception, have always gone on to big and great things afterwards and have never got into any kind of trouble. So when I gave that talk, if I can call it that, to the Kuzan sisters on Monday, I'm very confident that they are going to do well in our world. They've been in a different world. They've been institutionalized for all these years, but they've got tremendous support, not just from Innocence Canada, but from the people they're going to live with. And the community around them has all come forward. The Indigenous community particularly has come forward, and I think they're going to do great. I'm really confident that from here on in, their lives are going to be good. And indeed, Justice Lay, when he released them, wished them well, and I know he meant it.
James, this has been an honor for me today. Thank you so much for sharing about this latest win. Thank you.
Okay, it's a pleasure.
James,
thank you very much.
James Lockyer joining us today from Innocence Canada. Stay with us on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hi, I'm Justice. And I'm Nia. And we believe dreams fuel revolutions. That's why we're engaging with Canadian icons and the causes they support. Join us for these inspiring conversations and find out how you can be revolutionary.
Everybody knows not to drink and drive, but some people still think it's okay to take drugs and drive. Police have the authority, the ability, and the tools to determine if drivers are impaired by legal or illegal drugs. And because drug-impaired drivers can pose just as great a risk as drunk drivers, they face the same penalties, like the loss of their driver's license, a criminal record, fines, and more. A message from the RCMP, the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
At Celebrate Ottawa, we love showing you something a little different. We showcase remarkable people highlighting the city's diversity in arts, culture, sports, and nature. We will show you features that prove Ottawa is a vibrant and exciting city. We'll entertain you and we'll even teach you new things. Join me, your host, Lila Grine, as we explore and celebrate Ottawa.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, tacos aren't only for Tuesday. I make a Mexican taco feast for a crowd.
Workers will rally against the province's decision to end coverage for uninsured people living in Ontario today. The Ford government began the program during the pandemic to help residents at a time when travel restrictions made it difficult to leave the province. Organizers of today's rally say the move will have devastating effects for vulnerable populations, including migrant workers. Protesters will gather on the front lawn of Queen's Park from noon to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And the final report due today from the inquiry into the April 2020 mass murder of 22 people in Nova Scotia will include recommendations to improve community safety across Canada. The panel examined the events surrounding the 13-hour rampage, looking at the police response, the killer's access to firearms, gender-based violence, and the steps taken to let people know a killer dressed as a Mountie was on the loose. While the inquiry commissioner cannot lay blame or determine criminal or civil liability, some legal analysts think the report could prompt big changes, particularly for the RCMP. City News Time is 10:32. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
You're back on City News. Thank you so much for joining us. A little bit later in the show, NDP federal leader Jagmeet Singh will join us to talk about the federal budget, lots of different topics. That's going to be a really interesting conversation. We wanted to head to Cornwall now and speak with the mayor of Cornwall, Justin Towndale. Hi, Justin.
Hi, Sam.
Justin, you think about a community like Cornwall, you really have been put in the middle of a federal conversation. How does that feel regarding immigration and all of the different resources that you're really being pinched to provide people?
Well, I mean, from our perspective, we would be looking for, I would say, a more communicative partner in the federal government, right? We want to be treated as equals on their level, and that's been our biggest struggle right now. Typically the federal government doesn't always engage with smaller municipalities directly. They like to go through the provinces as intermediaries, but certainly it's put a lot of strain, as you mentioned, on our community in terms of resources and whatnot. And again, I've said this before, very happy to help, but we just need that willing partner in the federal government to help us in the areas where we need that assistance.
Mm-hmm. Let's break down some of the challenges, Justin, for those listeners that may not sort of be aware of what Cornwall is facing. So first of all, how many people live in Cornwall? What's your population?
We're about 48,000.
48,000. How many asylum seekers are in Cornwall looking for services?
As of today, our estimates provided, we got an update from the federal government last week, so our estimates are about 900 as of today.
900.
Currently in the city.
And my understanding, I just want to add something. Yeah. My understanding, there's 3,000 across the province.
I believe that number's correct at this time. I know that far more have come through the province in general, and what I was going to just mention is that it's worth noting that if we go back to August of last year, we've probably had at least 2,000 come through the city in total.
Wow. Okay. So that number has, has gone up and down for you for sure. And so give me a sense, Justin, when we think about Roxham Road, we think about people trying to find a new home, to be honest with you. They're leaving in many cases horrific situations. They're putting all their hopes on crossing at Roxham Road. We know that all that changed last Friday when President Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau met. We know swift action was taken, although the discussions have been happening for a very long time. What are your thoughts now that Roxham Road, that unofficial border crossing, has been closed?
Well, Sam, you're correct. A lot of the people coming through are fleeing situations that are far less than ideal. War-torn countries, countries that have experienced significant natural disasters. Some are fleeing persecution for religion or lifestyle choices. So, they're leaving to come here with good reason, seeking a safe place for themselves and their families. And, there's nothing wrong with that. And we should be, as Canada, we have a long history of accepting displaced peoples, and we should continue that. But obviously, the Roxham Road situation put a lot of strain on the system, a system that is broken already. And I think, going forward, it's still early days. We're not sure what it's going to look like. Our anticipation is that we'll see far fewer asylum claimants coming through the city of Cornwall, but we're not sure yet what that looks like. Right now, we're not aware of any significant drop in the number that are in the city. And, from my perspective, I am questioning how they're going to really enforce the crossing. I mean, there's no physical barrier there. Previously when asylum claimants approached the border, they were told, do not cross, you will be detained. And that's still kind of the same message as far as I'm aware. So we have to wait and see how effective this will be.
So give us a sense, Mayor Towndell, when people are arriving in Cornwall, are they looking for, sort of that bottom layer of Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Are they looking for food, shelter, clothing? Are they looking for it all?
I think there's quite a gamut. You have people who are literally arriving with nothing, just the clothes on their back. And then you have people who are arriving who may have some things they were able to take with them. My impression is that many of them want to join Canadian society and contribute immediately right off the hop. They are looking for that safe home. And it's not, I don't think anyone's coming here looking for a handout. That's not my impression at all. They're looking for a hand up, and there's quite a significant difference there. And, just yesterday in Cornwall, we had a job fair, and the city was able to provide transportation for asylum claimants at the 2 locations in Cornwall to attend the job fair, and many have looked to enter the workforce in Canada, contribute to our economy, and join our country like that. So, there are people who are looking just for a better life overall, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And what about, I'm just thinking about different programs and from a housing perspective. I mean, you and I have spoke about housing challenges across this country, in particular Cornwall. When you think about affordable housing, it's strained in every municipality. Where does that leave you in terms of resources, whether that be program resources or housing resources?
Yeah, and like you mentioned, we had discussed this previously. It's certainly a challenge for us. That is the big question. Once if an asylum claimant has a successful application to stay on a more permanent basis within Canada, the next step typically would be to leave one of the 2 locations in Cornwall and potentially look at more permanent housing, and that does pose a challenge. I mean, we are looking. Currently, we have one social housing project that's almost completed. We have another that's going to start this year, and there's another one within our portfolio. It's outside the city, but we are the service delivery manager for our region. So, we are making strides in that in our area, but we're still seeing pressures there. The city has partnered with some private developers to try to encourage development in the city. We recently approved a brownfield program for a 12-story apartment building within the city of Cornwall, and there's more in the pipeline that are coming, but at the end of the day, it takes time to build these. So that is a challenge for us going forward as, we look to host our new community members, and we look to have people join our community, but it's one of those things that just takes time.
Mm-hmm. If the Minister of Immigration for the federal government, Sean Fraser, was listening, and if Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was listening, and let's add Minister Chrystia Freeland, Finance Minister, if those 3 ministers, let's say they're driving to somewhere today and they're listening to us on City News, talk to them, Justin. What would you say to those 3 people?
I would say that, the city of Cornwall has been more than happy to help. I think we stepped up and we've been punching above our weight for a city our size and what we're able to contribute. But again, we need that communication and we need the willing partnership. Our ask is simple. give us the resources we need to help, the resources we've already expended, provide us with that contact for the numerous community groups that are willing to step up and help, because we have dozens that have said we want to help, we just don't know who to talk to. We've raised this issue with IRCC, and so far they have not designated a point person, which is unfortunate, I think, because that's a missed opportunity as well.
So are you looking for retroactive money for what you've spent, as well as forward money for what you're going to have to deal with?
Yeah, so I think, we are certainly looking to recover the resources that we've expended so far, and we don't think that's unreasonable by any means. But going forward, we'd like more of a collaborative planning approach where we can, look at what the future will hold. Even with the closure of Roxham Road, we anticipate there could be a need going forward for municipalities to host asylum claimants, refugees, immigrants, whatever that may look like. And we're happy to step up to that, but we would want an ongoing partnership with the federal government where we can plan accordingly, like instead of 3 months out, a year out, where there's stable funding provided or stable funding streams provided, and we can work in that manner because it's better for everybody. Instead of being reactive, we're being proactive, and that provides better outcomes down the road.
Mayor Towndale, how hard is it to balance the 48,000 residents you have and all the business owners and everybody you'd have to deal with on a daily basis, just in your job as mayor, with 900 people that are seeking a new life? How do you balance your day?
I mean, right now it's hard to, realistically. My days are very unpredictable. There are obviously set meetings and things in my calendar, but there's a lot that comes out of left field, if you will. But I would say that, right now, as far as I'm concerned, anyone who's in the city of Cornwall, whether you're a asylum claimant, resident, whatever, if you're here right now, you're part of my community. You're part of our community. So I treat everyone equally in that regard, and I want to work with everyone to ensure the best outcomes for them. I think, our community has been very welcoming overall and has shown a willingness to help, and I'm very proud of our community for that. I just think that at the same time, like I said, we're just looking for that partnership.
It's kind of ironic, Justin, because, so many of the people that are seeking to come to Canada have felt abandoned in many ways by their own country. And I'm feeling, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, you tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm feeling like you feel abandoned by your federal government.
In a manner of speaking, to some extent, yes. I mean, when we first started kind of ringing the alarm bells here, we did get a good reaction from IRCC. I had a meeting with an assistant deputy minister and Minister Fraser as well, and communication at that point was going very well, but it would seem that, we've kind of reverted a little bit in terms of that sort of clarity about the information that's flowing and whatnot and the concerns we've raised. It's one of those things where, again, we're willing to help, we want to help, but we have limited resources at the end of the day, and we have a lot of priorities here in our own community that we need to focus on as well, and it's difficult to plan accordingly. We can't necessarily have holes in our budget when it comes to this sort of thing. We need to be able to budget appropriately, and that will dictate what we can do going forward, but it certainly puts pressures on us.
Mayor of Cornwall, Justin Towndale, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Sam.
Appreciate it. When we come back, we're going to meet Andrea Douglas. We're also going to speak with Teresa Bailey. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
It was our 35th anniversary. To celebrate, we were on our way to Mama Rosie's, where we had our first date. That's when we heard coming from the radio. So we stopped and listened. It helped us get to safety. So when I think of our anniversary, because now we have even more to celebrate.
On Thursday's Daytime Ottawa, we'll meet Aero Meso Cafe and Bakery. They're going to be on the show showcasing some of their flavor-filled croissants and something called a cookie cake. Oh my goodness, it is going to be absolutely delicious on the show. We'll also tell you about a great nonprofit arts and crafts school, and we'll give you all the details on the latest production from Tactics. All that and more on Thursday's Daytime Ottawa.
Hey everybody, my name is Karen. I'm here with my best friends Shane and Monique. Join us on Rogers TV for Fitness Faction. Every week we're going to take you through a full body workout. We've got strength training, we've got cardio, we've got HIIT. Ladies, let's get back into it.
I think we've got 10 more skaters. Let's go.
Here comes the 67. They score! How's that for your first of the season? Another highlight reel goal. Perfect placement there on the one-time. What a play! Steph scores!
He is making a statement, isn't he?
Oh, that's a beauty of a shot from the freshman.
The OHL playoffs.
What a goal!
On Rogers TV.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hi, my name is Arkantel and I'm part of Encore Ottawa. My set will be coming out this week, so I hope you can watch it and enjoy it. Thank you.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Thank you for joining us here on City News. I love connecting with people in our community that are doing amazing things. And Andrea Douglas joins us now to tell us about her initiative. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, Sam. Nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you. So you're the co-founder of Olympink. Tell me what this is.
Well, Olympink is a swim meet / fundraiser all in one. And what we're doing is we're raising money for the purchase of a new ultrasound machine at the Breast Health Center at the Ottawa Hospital. And it's all about helping all the women in Ottawa that will be affected by breast cancer. And more than that, in fact, it's about helping all the women of Ottawa, period, because using an ultrasound machine isn't just about finding breast cancer. It's also about helping figure out if breasts are healthy or if there's something that needs further follow-up.
And it's never been more important, Andrea, than now. We know so many of those mammograms have been missed. I mean, this is needed desperately. Give me an idea. Why did you organize this event? Give me a bit of history.
So it started back in 2018. I myself, of course, am a breast cancer survivor. That was from 2014. And I started swimming with a master's group, and it's run by an Olympian. Andrea Schwartz-Smith is her name. And her mother-in-law had actually passed away from breast cancer, very sadly. And you know, it just sort of became something that we talked about, and before we knew it, we were organizing a swim meet to raise money for this important cause, and it started in 2018. And we ran it for 3 years, although I must say that we were disappointed in 2020 when we had to pull the plug a month before the meet, and we probably all know why that is.
Right.
So over those 3 years, we managed to raise $133,000, and that was enough money to outfit a whole ultrasound room at the Breast Health Center. And this year our goal is $100,000 to buy the actual ultrasound machine because, you know, the more technology, the more access to technology we have, the more women can be seen.
Mm-hmm. It's remarkable, and I always say, you know, you give something to a busy person and they get it done. It sounds like, you know, you've got lots going on. This was really important to you as a breast cancer survivor, and you want others to benefit. Give us a sense of how maybe someone can get involved, donating, participating.
Well, we have a website with lots of links, so there's too many numbers and letters to repeat on radio. But briefly, it's olympink.org. And I just want to say the Olympic part of things, obviously it's, the combination of Olympian and pink for breast cancer. And the funny thing is that our swim coach, Andrea, who is, as I mentioned, an Olympian, now she can't even say the word Olympic. It comes out as Olympic every time.
I love it. I love it. That's wonderful. Yeah. That's wonderful. So we're going to head to the website there, still looking for donations. And are you still looking for participants? Tell me what happens that day.
So what happens is, first of all, we start with the mayor and with our MP, Yasser Naqvi, and Ottawa's own wonderful Lucy Van Olden-Barneveld opening up the ceremonies. And then we move on to the Olympians racing, and then just a regular Masters swim meet. But halfway through that meet, we stop and we have a ceremonial swim, which involves having an Olympian along with a couple of breast cancer survivors. And it's a very moving part of the ceremony. And I think, what we're trying to show is that an Olympian, to reach their goal, requires a lot of hard work and a lot of community support. And it's kind of similar to the story of a breast cancer patient. We can't get through everything that we need to go through without working really hard with all the support from the medical community and obviously from within our own friends and family community. And it's just a way of showing how important it is to have support.
Absolutely. And do you feel you'll hit that 100,000? How confident are you?
Oh, I am extremely confident. Today, the last time I checked, we were at 88,800, so we're not too far away. We've got 16 days left before the meet, and obviously what I would love to see is a groundswell of support and some momentum to maybe get us up to $1,000 every day until April 15th, and that's the big day.
Well, I know you've inspired people today, Andrea. Thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing your own personal journey. I think that's a really big part of the relatability. I have two people in my network, two friends that have recently been diagnosed with breast cancer. So it because the pandemic came didn't mean that breast cancer went away.
No, in fact, quite the opposite. And as you mentioned earlier, mammograms were being delayed, and the ultrasound, really, it's all about earlier detection. And the sooner you detect breast cancer, the less invasive the treatment will be. And I had to deal with chemo and radiation and everything else, and maybe that would have been different if it had been caught earlier. So it's all about detection and screening, and that's going to save lives.
Thanks for inspiring me today, Andrea. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Andrea
Bye-bye.
Douglas spending time with us today, co-founder of Olymp Pink, a great event happening on April the 15th. We wanted to spend some time as well today with Teresa Bailey. Hello, Teresa.
Hello there. How are you?
Good. Teresa, when there are big hockey stories come up, I always think about you. So, author of Hockey Moms, you wrote this incredible book with a good friend, of course, Terry Marcotte, legendary sports broadcaster in the city here. And there's just, your book talks about, moms and the journey through the hockey system. When I hear a report, like I heard yesterday, coming from Rick Westhead in regards to potentially alleged that parents have paid to have their children brought into the OHL. I honestly, when I first saw it, because a friend had posted it, I actually wrote to them and said, "Is this right?" I didn't see Rick's name attributed to it. But as soon as I saw that Rick was investigating, of course, he's, uncovered a lot of things in terms of Hockey Canada. But it really was unbelievable to me, Teresa. How are your thoughts today?
Well, my first thought is, we talk a lot, but I wish there were some positive stories to talk about.
Me too.
Yeah. I think I had maybe... I was thinking about it too, and I think there is a range of emotion, and I probably lie around that continuum of parents who are outraged versus some who are complacent and say this has been going on forever. And I think, unfortunately, no one is really surprised. It's not something that's been talked about so openly, but we're talking about lots of things openly now. And one of the things that's happened in some of the conversations I've had is there are also people who are actually angry at Rick Westhead for even talking about these things. And I've seen comments like Rick Westhead is individually ruining hockey in Canada just for talking about this stuff. Wow. So, yeah, it's a strange sort of environment.
It certainly is. And from what I read from Rick's sort of reporting is that it's in some cases upwards of $30,000 to have their child recruited into the OHL. I mean, that just blows my mind, Teresa.
Yeah, and I guess for people who understand that that's just to be drafted, and I think they talked about it just being drafted. So some of those players who are drafted, especially in lower rounds and in hockey circles, you talk about, like, I don't know because I'm not one of the people who makes the decisions, but often you'll hear them say below the fourth round, they're not going to play anyway. But I think Rick put the question out himself, why would someone pay this much? But what happens is it provides status but also opportunity to say that you've been drafted. So I guess parents who are able to, some of them are buying the status and opportunity for their kids.
I mean, we think about a number of celebrities recently that, some have spent time in jail for paying for their kids to be brought into a university and be accepted into a university, and this one really struck a chord with me. Do you ever lose hope, Teresa? I mean, you're right. We've talked about a lot of tough subjects regarding hockey, but yet you've written this incredible, hopeful book. Do you ever lose hope about hockey?
Well, I think that it's frustrating. I'm not sure that I use hope that people are always going to love hockey. For sure, this doesn't touch that. There are still always going to be games on lakes and rinks and local arenas and all of those things. But what it does for me is further amplifies the challenge that people have accessing higher levels or showing that it's an actual fair system where maybe the most skilled players are able to rise to the top. And a lot of players have so many barriers to getting into hockey that this is just one more of those barriers that it's just amplified. And I think there's a great deal of hope, and I think a lot of things are changing, but maybe if this has been going on all along, this is the necessary pain we need to experience in order to uncover it so that it is more accessible. Maybe this is part of the process.
Mm-hmm. Teresa, I love chatting with you, but I do hope the next time it's something positive. I do hope.
Me too.
I do hope.
If not, that's okay. We'll keep talking about it, but I know.
Because I do want to shine a light on subjects that are tough regarding hockey. I love hockey, and I have a lot of friends who played. I have friends that have played the NHL. I mean, I really do love the game, and I'm big Sens fan and all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, culture is the name of the game.
Absolutely, and I think that only by talking about it is it going to improve. So we'll keep doing that. We'll keep doing the hard work.
Okay, we'll keep calling you, Teresa. Thank you, Teresa Bailey, spending time with us today. She wrote a book called Hockey Mums. She wrote that book with Terry Marcotte, a friend of mine, obviously a friend of Teresa's. They've done a great job there. It's a great, very unique look at hockey in our country. When we come back, Lawrence Greenspan is going to be here. I know you know that name. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Here comes the 67. He scores! How's that for your first of the season? Oh! Another highlight reel goal. Perfect placement there on the one-time. What a play!
67's action on Rogers TV.
I'm Wendell Clark with a word about winning. We all know it takes a team effort in any sport and with any challenge. You can be a part of the winning team that shuts out impaired driving. Whether you're out on the town or just hanging out with friends, drink responsibly. Always have a plan for a safe ride home for yourself, your family, and your friends. You'll be helping to shut out impaired driving.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more.
Arrive alive. Drive sober.
Hi, I'm Meg from AIM Fitness, and I'm here with my buddy Fit Finley. Join us every week for Fit Over 50. We'll take you through some low-impact and high-intensity workouts designed to improve your strength and your balance. All you'll need is a resistance band, some light hand weights, and also your water bottle and a sturdy chair. Tune in right here on Rogers TV and let us be part of your weekly routine.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
On the next Fit Over 50, join us for some floor exercises. We'll be working the core, we'll be exercising your full body and stretching. We'll see you then.
City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It is Thursday, March 30th. Good morning. I am Damilola Onime. Right now in Ottawa, mainly sunny, -6. In Smiths Falls, it is -5. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. After decades of pressure, the Vatican has renounced the colonial-era concept known as the doctrine of discovery. This as the Pope remains in hospital. City News reporter Alex Bloomfield has the latest.
The doctrine of discovery is a legal concept that allowed European settlers to defeat land claims by indigenous peoples in the colonial era. Many scholars believe it has its origin in 3 15th century papal bulls. While the Vatican has long argued the concept is not official church dogma, today it admits the bulls did not adequately reflect the equal dignity and rights of indigenous peoples, and the Catholic Church now formally repudiates the concept and any other like it. The release coincides with Pope Francis being hospitalized in Rome with a pulmonary infection. ABC's Nicole Winfield says the 86-year-old's Easter plans are now in question.
We're waiting to hear from the Vatican if alternative provisions are being discussed, such as having someone else step in to at least cover Palm Sunday, and then with the rest of Holy Week to be decided.
Alex Bloomfield, City News.
And they're just coming in from Winnipeg, where we are hearing that a judge has now acquitted a now retired 93-year-old priest of assault after a residential school survivor accused him of forcing himself on her more than 50 years ago. We'll have more on this developing story coming up for you at 11:30. And now with the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News weather specialist Denise Andreacci.
A quiet day weather-wise for Ottawa and Smiths Falls, but it's not going to stay that way. We have quite a bit of active weather expected Friday, Saturday, mixing for Friday, or at times just rain and snow. It's temperature dependent. We are only near 3 degrees, so we are just hitting that rain zone in some areas throughout the day tomorrow, but we also have that mixing 2 to 4 centimeters. Saturday, mild, rainy, and then we get cold. We're down to -10 for Saturday night, sunny and cool Sunday. Today's guaranteed high 2 degrees.
City News time is 11:03. Healthcare workers within the province will be taking to Queen's Park later on today to protest what they call cruel cuts to healthcare for uninsured people. This comes as the Ford government has decided to end coverage for uninsured people living in Ontario effective tomorrow. Doctors, nurses, midwives and other healthcare workers will be holding a demonstration to urge the Ford government to reverse this sudden cut to healthcare coverage and keep Ontarians healthy. The demonstration begins on the lawn of Queen's Park at noon. I am Damilola Onime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Thank you for spending time with us here on City News. I'm Sam Laprade. The last couple of years, I've covered a story, and I've covered it from a couple of different angles, but today I wanted to spend some time with Lawrence Greenspan from Greenspan, Granier and Hill. How are you, Lawrence?
Good morning, thanks.
Lawrence, I really appreciate you spending time with me today. You know that I've covered here on City News the story of a number of Canadians that are in Syria in Kurdish prison, in particular Jack Letts. I've spoke with his mum, Sally Lane, a number of times, Matthew Behrens, who's also working very closely on this file, about Canadians being repatriated back to Canada. And this is a story that's got so many different layers to it. But break it down for us, Lawrence, in terms of, and I'm going to say the women, the children, and the men, because that's really how Canada's seeing it.
Well, there's Sam, you've correctly identified there's a number of moving parts and there's a number of groups that are involved. First off, I represent the BOLO applicants, and BOLO stands for Bring Our Loved Ones Home. And we brought an application on behalf of 6 women, 13 children, and 4 men. We brought an application on their behalf in order to get the Canadian government to do what I have asked them to do, which was take steps to repatriate these Canadians. They are Canadians who are in detention camps. The women and children are in detention camps, as you know, and the men are in prison. And the men have not been charged with anything. And despite that, being in that situation for some 4 years, the Canadian government has refused to take any steps to repatriate them. In a situation where the Autonomous Administration Northeastern Syria, or ANZ as we call them, where ANZ has been requesting not only Canada, but all the countries of the world to come, please take your nationals and take them home. And there have been thousands of nationals that have been repatriated to their various countries. In Canada's case, we have to this point so far repatriated a grand total of 7 Canadians in the detention camps and prisons. So there's that first group of men, women, and children. We reached an agreement with the government regarding the 6 women and the 13 children. In fact, we reached that agreement on January the 19th of this year. And pursuant to that agreement, all of those women and children are to be brought home by the Canadian government. As far as the 4 men are concerned, the following day, which was January 20th, the court ruled that the Canadian government had to do the same for the men, that is to take steps to repatriate them. Quite apart from that group of BOLO applicants, there's a group of non-Canadian women who have, I believe it's about 10 children, Canadian children, that are also in detention camps. And they are quite different. They're outside of the court application. And so far, what we're understanding is, and what we're hearing, is that the non-Canadian mothers are being asked by Global Affairs Canada to consent to their Canadian children being brought back home to Canada without their mothers. There's a huge problem that comes from that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's not only in violation of every international covenant on the rights of children, but it's also, in fact, contrary to the very policy that the Global Affairs put into place, in which one of the 3 principles is that thou shalt not separate mother from child. I mean, it's an unbelievable proposal that is being.
Lawrence, who do they think's going to care for these children? Who's going to care for them?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether they have any family here in Canada, any extended family in Canada who will care for them, or they're presumably just going to be, sent home, sent back here to Canada, and various social agencies across the country will need to provide for them.
I mean, I've never heard anything more ludicrous in my life, Lawrence.
No, it's not only, as you say, it's not only ludicrous, it's completely unjust, and as I say, contrary to international treaties to which Canada is a signatory, and as I say, it's contrary to their very own policy, which says, I mean, it's kind of sad that it even needs to be said, is that you don't have you don't set up a situation where you take children away from the only parent they've ever known.
Well, and they've all been living in trauma. I mean, so you're going to take these children away from their moms who have kept them, I mean, let's be honest, they've kept them alive during this horrible, horrible time, and separate them. And now you're going to leave a mother in trauma and take 3 children to a country they've never even probably heard of.
That's right. Yeah, it is, well, I think Sam, your word ludicrous is appropriate.
I'm trying not to swear, to be honest with you, Lawrence. So can we talk about the men for a minute? You know, as I mentioned, you know, I have a great affinity to Sally Lane. I've followed her story. I've had countless conversations with her regarding her son, Jack Letts, who held both a British passport and a Canadian passport. The British passport has now been closed. He does not be recognized. He's not recognized as a citizen of Britain. So walk me through the 4 men now.
Well, the 4 men are in, we believe, I should say, that they are in prison. They have been in prison for upwards of 4 years. None of them have been charged with any offenses. There's certainly no trials that are contemplated for these 4 men. And when I argued the case earlier this week in the Federal Court of Appeal, you have with these 4 men the epitome of arbitrary detention, because they're being held in prisons, obviously against their will. They're being held there without charge and indefinitely. And it doesn't get any worse than that. It's, you know, a worse nightmare is to have somebody who is being held in prison without charge, and they have no idea if they're ever going to get out or when. To make matters even more complicated, or as they were described by Justice Brown as dire, is the fact that we're not even sure that these men are still alive. We haven't had proof of life on some of them for 3 years. So this is a situation where, you know, I know there's lots of people that say, oh, look, they went over there, they fought for ISIS, or they supported ISIS, so, let them rot. And that's, very unfortunate, to say the least, attitude. The fact is that in the decision of Justice Brown, he made it very clear that the Canadian government is not even making any allegations, let alone whether they have any proof or any evidence. They're not even making any allegations that any of these men were involved with ISIS or even supported ISIS.
Well, because there's no evidence.
Exactly.
There's no evidence. I mean, I've read Sally Lane's book, Reasonable Cause to Suspect. I've followed this story. I'm still looking for the evidence. I mean, and I think the British press did a horrible job to this family, to Sally Lane and to her husband and to Jack Letts by dubbing Jack Jihad Jack.
Yeah.
I mean that was horrible for that family, because there's no coming away from that. I try not to talk about it, to be honest with you, Lawrence, but I do mention it because I think Canadians remember that, and this kid. I mean, he was a kid at the time. Thinks he's going to go and save people, and there's lots about Jack that that's been challenging for his parents, but to get a call that I need $1,000, Mom, to be able to come home and get out of here, and to have his parents detained and charged. I mean, the story is just so unbelievable to me, Lawrence.
Yeah, Sally and John have been, Jack's parents have been incredible advocates, warriors on behalf of their son, and rightly so. And I've watched them. And the way they have tried to done everything. They've done everything humanly possible and then some to try and bring Jack home safely. And this court action was really yet another means by which we are attempting to bring Jack and the other 3 men back home.
Lawrence, I want to ask you a question. I've never asked you this before, but I want you to take me to the day that you found out you were getting into law school. Do you remember that day? You remember?
Why are we going here, Sam?
I'm going to tell you why. Is because if I take you back to that day and I was to say to Lawrence Greenspan on that day that you would be fighting for Canadians to be repatriated back from Syria, back from a war-torn country and trying to get them back here, would you have still pursued this career? This is obviously what you want to do. You've stuck up for so many people over the years. You've covered incredible cases, but go back and talk to Lawrence Greenspan so many years ago and say, this is the kind of work he would be doing. Would you ever have believed it?
Well, actually, it goes back well before law school. My stepfather was a survivor of the Holocaust, and so the one thing that he emphasized with us always, this is long before I got into law school, was the importance of checks and balances on power. And you can imagine that if he were still around, I know he would be very proud of the work that his son is doing, trying to get people out of detention camps when he managed to survive and the rest of his family didn't. So it's long before law school. I think I had the values instilled about standing up for people and standing up for their freedoms and their liberties, and it's been a real privilege to have a career where I could do the kind of things that I love to do, and for people whose rights are being infringed or denied.
Now, I ask a lot of questions, Lawrence, but that question, I am so glad I asked. Your answer is incredible, and just that little insight into you, Lawrence, it's made my day. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Sam. You take care of yourself.
You too. Lawrence Greenspan joining us, Greenspan, Granger Hill, a lawyer doing incredible work. And you see Lawrence at the front of many high-profile cases, and I'm so grateful that he joined us today to talk about definitely a topic that I'm very passionate about, and that is the Canadians that remain in Syria. And who's fighting so that they don't come home? It's the Canadian government. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hi, I'm Justice. And I'm Nia. And we believe dreams fuel revolutions. That's why we're engaging with Canadian icons and the causes they support.
Join us for these inspiring conversations and find out how you can be revolutionary.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Do you worry about how much someone drinks?
Do you feel angry or depressed most of the time? Do you feel neglected or unloved?
Do you feel that if the drinker loved you, she or he would stop drinking?
If you answered yes to any of these questions, you are not alone.
Not everyone trapped by alcohol is an alcoholic.
Families and friends are suffering too. Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Call 1-866-200-0223 or visit alanon.org/help.
Send them home. Get rid of them. Gentlemen, please.
And so, this organ, which I regret I cannot name because of the presence of these members of the weaker sex, who, although they are married, could not possibly endure...
Get them out.
Patience, Ginny. Patience.
Get them out!
Dr. McFarlane!
Mrs. Trout.
There's no place for women in a medical school. Get them out!
If you do not bring this classroom under control, I am going to repeat every word of this disgusting lecture to your charming wife.
My friend Jenny Trout was not the only woman to face this kind of thing in medical school. But she would become the first woman licensed to practice medicine in Canada.
Here comes the 67. They score! How's that for your first of the season? Another highlight reel goal. Perfect placement there on the one-time. What a play! Steps one, scores!
He is is making a statement, isn't he?
Oh, that's a beauty of a shot from the freshman.
The OHL playoffs.
What a goal!
On Rogers TV.
Little brown girl, don't.
Hey, I'm Picasso in Von Teef. I'm so happy to be involved with Encore Ottawa Season 3. I can't wait for you guys to see what I have in store for you.
Hi, I'm Justice.
And I'm Nia.
And we believe dreams fuel revolutions. That's why we're engaging with Canadian icons and the causes they support.
Join us for these inspiring conversations and find out how you can be revolutionary.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
And we're back on City News. Well, there's no two ways about it. I talk a lot about the LRT. It is a hot topic, of course. Steve DeRush talks a lot about the LRT as well. City Councillor for Riverside South, Finlay Creek, and Chair of the LRT Subcommittee. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Hi, Sam. Good morning.
This is obviously top of mind for pretty much every resident. Even if you're not taking the LRT, everybody wants to know what's happening with this subcommittee. I will say I think this is one of the best decisions that was made to have a subcommittee. I think you're the right chair for this. There was a meeting yesterday. Walk us through, Steve, what happened there.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yesterday was our second meeting of the LRT subcommittee. This is a committee that was set up under the leadership of Mayor Sutcliffe and supported by City Council in the wake of the experience with Stage 1, as well as the Commission of Inquiry, which gave over 100 recommendations in terms of how the city and our partners can do better in terms of delivering light rail. So yesterday we received an update on Stage 2. Stage 2 is the extensions into the east and west and the Trillium line that is going to go south into Riverside South. And it was quite a comprehensive update in terms of the work being done at all the different stations and the impacts that we will feel as citizens as things like Hung Club Road needs to be temporarily, there'll be some traffic diversions, what have you, as they work on the bridge there. So it was a pretty comprehensive report, and the intent there really to have a good focus and magnifying glass on the work that the committee or that the work of the contractor in the city to oversee the project. Second agenda item was on the delegated authorities, so very technical, but these are basically the powers that we've given to staff to make decisions on things like real estate and paying bills. And the big one that's got a lot of attention is the decisions to accept the system and start receiving passengers. And there's going to be a lot of focus, I think, on that, given our experience with Stage 1. I think a lot of city councillors want to make sure that when we go through the testing, that it's transparent, that it's robust, that it's not shifting, and that at the end of the day, we're given as much information that we are ready to go, and staff have done their due diligence to make sure that we're ready to receive passengers when that day comes.
Councillor DeRush, I think, when we think about the LRT, the word trust always comes up for me. Is this a process we can trust? The process that you and your colleagues are undertaking on this subcommittee? Because there's a lot of broken trust. I mean, the day that obviously we look back on it, the day that the LRT was launched, maybe that wasn't the right date. There's a lot of sort of moving parts, and the report, of course, that came down regarding the LRT. Trust was a big theme there. Is this a process we can trust?
Well, I always say to folks and to my kids that trust is earned, and that's something we're working to do every day, I think. And the experience with Stage 1, the information and exposure that the city received and the contractor received as a result of the Commission of Inquiry really eroded the confidence and raised a lot of question marks in the minds of residents and city councillors, including myself. So yeah, I there's a lot of attention on this project, a lot of focus. we are working extremely hard to make sure that that we get what the taxpayers expect. And there will be, I'm sure, some ups and downs. But at the end of the day, we want to be transparent in terms of what's happening and work to, I think, strengthen the trust that residents have with their municipal government, the City of Ottawa, and ultimately bring riders back to our system, which is essential to the operations.
Because it's such an interesting sort of dynamic when you think about the influences on a project like this. We have elected officials, you all have your own strengths, but, I don't know any of you as being an engineer. So you really are relying on engineers, on staff, on RTG to kind of give you the goods in terms of how this process is going. But yet you're being, sort of asked the tough questions like you are today about this project. So how difficult is it when you're trying to represent the people of Ottawa, but at the same time, there's maybe some technology and technical terms that you aren't familiar with? I mean, I've always thought this was a really challenging thing for elected officials, to be honest.
Oh, for sure. And it happens every day where we rely on the expertise, professionalism, and advice of the staff of the City of Ottawa, whether that be the engineers or the public health officials or planning experts. So obviously, there's a lot of spotlight on the LRT. Part of it is having the best and the brightest around working for us, and I think we've got that with the current team that we have there. The previous City Council made a decision that we were going to have a third party look at our readiness as well to get an independent view of that. And I expect that our next committee, as was mentioned at the committee yesterday, at our next committee meeting in April, that we will hear from that third party that is looking at the process to get to go live. And again, look forward to that. I don't have any inside side at this present time, but I fully expect that there'll be some recommendations and some advice that will help bolster the confidence that we have as a council that we're moving in the right direction, and the staff have it in hand, and that we're again going to get a system that will be ready to accept passengers. And again, I think we have to accept that a project of this complexity will have some hiccups, and we're going to work through those. We're going to be transparent. But at the end of the day, we want a reliable system, and we're working towards this. And again, that third party, I think, helps us bolster the information that we have to make sure that we're on the right track.
We only have about a minute left, but sure. Councillor, is there a question that you were going to ask that maybe wasn't asked at the launch of the Confederation line?
No, we spent a lot of time on it yesterday. I'm particularly interested in the testing, as I said, and I really put a strong underline and emphasis to staff that they need to be transparent. They need to show us that the testing is going well. That again, there's no shifting criteria, and that they're learning from the lessons that we went through in stage one. So again, still lots of questions, of course. But again, they're at a certain point in the project. There's still a lot of work to do. And as a subcommittee, we're going to continue to meet and to, again, put a lot of light on this project and give councillors the opportunity to ask more questions. So definitely more to come, Sam. But I think yesterday was a good conversation on the expectations of council and the authorities we've given to staff, and a good overview in terms of where we're at on delivering this project.
Well, I think it's a good first step. I mean, you've always come on when we've asked you to. Your councillor colleague, Glenn Gower's been very open as well. I think that's all part of this puzzle, Steve. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. We're doing our best for sure.
Thank you, Steve DeRush, joining us today, City Councillor for Riverside South, and of course, Finlay Creek, also chair of the LRT subcommittee. When we come back, Jagmeet Singh will be here, NDP leader. Stay with us on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, tacos aren't only for Tuesday. I make a Mexican taco feast for a crowd.
For 25 years, you've been helping to make our roads safer by doing the right thing. You've been the designated driver, you've stayed over, called home, you've called a cab or a friend, and planned ahead. Let's keep doing the right thing. Support sober driving by getting yourself and your friends home safely.
Do the right thing.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
Hey folks, it's me, Giovanni Patini, the host of the RTV quiz show, the hottest show on television. It's the hilarious quiz show where you, the viewers, play for valuable non-existent prizes. It's got great trivia, fun facts, and a lot of laughs, all blended together in a perfect cocktail of edutainment. So join us Wednesdays at 7:30 right here on Rogers TV. Nice.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It is Thursday, March 30th. Good morning. Good morning. I am Damilola Onime. Right now in Ottawa, -4, feels like -11. In Smiths Falls, it is -3 and feels like -7. And here's what's making news this hour. And breaking news reaching us from Nova Scotia, where the Mass Casualty Commission has just released a report into the 2020 Nova Scotia mass shooting. The report says the many failings in the RCMP's response should lead to an overhaul of the National Police Force. The 7-volume final report from the Mass Casualty Commission says an external review of the RCMP is needed, and the Federal Public Safety Minister should then identify responsibilities that could be better handled by other policing agencies. A 3-member commission found the Mounties failed to notice years of warning signs about the killer and responded poorly as he began a rampage that claimed the lives of 22 victims on April 18th and 19th of 2020. We'll have more on this developing story through the afternoon. And the OPP detachment in Killaloe is asking for the public's help locating a missing 42-year-old man. Sean, who police says also goes by Ryan, is 42. He was last seen in Killaloe on Sunday, March 26th. He is said to also frequent the Ottawa area. He is 5 inches, 7 feet tall. He has blue eyes and brown hair. A picture and full description is at our website, ottawa.citynews.ca. If you spot him or you know where he is, you are asked to contact the OPP. City News time is 11:32. I am Damilola Onime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
I'm Sam Laprade, and you're back with City News. It's been a very busy week. I wanted to get caught up with a very busy person, and that is Jagmeet Singh, of course, the federal leader of the NDP party. Good morning, Mr. Singh. Thanks so much for joining us on City News.
Good morning. Honored to be here.
It's certainly been a busy, it's been a busy week. President Joe Biden was in town. Did you have an opportunity to spend any time with him?
Yeah, we had a good interaction. We had a good chat. When we received him in Parliament, and I mentioned that I really appreciate the emphasis that he's been putting on good jobs and union jobs and workers. And he said a really folksy thing, which I actually really agree with. He said, we got to build from the bottom up and the middle out instead of from the top down. I absolutely agree with that.
Absolutely. Well, it's certainly been busy for you as well. The federal budget, of course, this week. In a nutshell, how would you grade this? If you were a teacher grading this budget, what would you give it?
It's always a tough thing to do the grading, which is a very fair question. I would say I'm really proud of the dental care that we forced the government to do, which is the first expansion of our Medicare in a generation. It's going to include millions of people to get their teeth looked after, save them money as well. The GST rebate is going to put money in people's pockets. We're really proud of that. And we're really proud for the first time ever, investments are being made to fight the climate crisis that are tied to jobs and tied to good wages. It's never been done before. There's never been strings attached to incentives for businesses this way. So that's something I'm really, really proud of. I think those are going to be significant things for people's lives. So I would give that a very strong grade. Those are very positive things that we fought for and included. And then there's things that we're disappointed in, things that we were worried that are not there. There's not enough urgency to build homes that people can afford, given the housing crisis we're in. And there's no reform to EI, given that economists have said a recession is very likely. We don't have an EI that covers all workers. So those are two things that I'm worried about, and the others I'm really proud of. So I would give a very positive grade for those things that are going to make a difference in people. And then there's some concern in those areas that are not being addressed.
Mm-hmm. Let's take a deeper dive into some of those issues. I have to say, when I heard Minister Chrystia Freeland talking about the dental plan, and it kind of reminded me of when I don't know if you remember working with another student on a project at school. You present the project and the other student takes all the credit. That's what made me think of the dental plan, because it felt like Minister Freeland was saying, hey, this was us. And all the time I kept saying to every time I heard her talk, I kept saying, I think this was Mr. Singh.
Well, I'm glad you're thinking that. We're really proud that we fought and forced the government to do this. In this, we have so much evidence. We have so much proof that just 2 years ago, the Liberals have voted against our idea, this exact same plan 2 times. In fact, we tried to bring it in 2 times in the minority government. They voted against it. And now we're making it happen. So it's really clearly the Democrats that forced the Liberals to do this. They would not have done this but for us. But more important than all of that is that I think about the seniors that I met at a round table, 2 of whom, a couple, a husband and a wife, who told me they've got so much pain in their teeth because they couldn't get dental care to prevent this, but they have to get root canal surgery. And it's going to cost them over $1,000 each. And they can't find the money for it, but they also can't put it off because it's hurting so much. And I told them I'm going to get you free dental care by the end of this year for seniors. Their eyes welled up with tears in the idea that they could actually get their teeth looked after. That's who I think about, and we're going to deliver for them.
Mm-hmm. And when I think about the supply and confidence motion and the opportunity to sort of get where we are today in federal politics, has there ever been a moment where you regretted that decision?
Well, there's been tough moments, I would say. There's been tense moments. We've had to fight, even for things that we forced the government to agree to. We still have to push them and fight for it and force them to do it. So there's been tough moments, challenging moments. But for me, it's always been clear that my mission or my goal was to use the position I have to make a difference in people's lives. And that's what we've been able to do here. So I've never regretted that for a moment.
Mm-hmm. And when you think about veterans in this country, I got to be honest, I looked in that budget for monies for veterans. We know there's some monies in there. Do you think this budget really respected veterans in Canada?
I think for a long time, veterans have not been being respected. I think the past 2 governments in a row, we've heard veterans raise really serious concerns from Harper to the current Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. Veterans have been sounding the alarm bells. Most recently, we pointed out there is a contract worth a significant amount in the hundreds of millions of dollars that's going to a company owned by Loblaws, owned by Galen Weston. And that contract is not working. It's not delivering the care that veterans need. It's not delivering the quality of care. And we've called for that contract to be replaced by one that actually works and not go through this private delivery that's actually not giving the veterans the care they need. It's an ongoing challenge and one that we're deeply concerned by.
And when you think about, the everyday things we do as Canadians, we're heading to the gas tank or the gas pump, we're heading to the grocery store. Do you think that the Trudeau government really understands what that means? You referenced, a couple that you spoke with. Do you think they really understand the stress on Canadian families?
I don't think so, and I pointed that out in a number of different ways where the government doesn't get what people are going through, and I say this with a lot of confidence. If we were not there, people would not be getting the support that they need. They wouldn't be getting the break that they need. And we force them to do that because we've been acutely aware of what people go through. And I give the example of when I was as a kid, I took care of my brother. I had to bring my brother to live with me when I was in university. So I was 20, my brother was 15, and I took care of my kid brother. I had to. My dad was really sick and we didn't have any money coming in, so I had to work 3 jobs and take care of him. And I remember when I was going through that difficult time, worried about my kid brother while I was going to school and university, helping him with his homework in high school, and thinking, what can I do to make sure he's well fed? The idea of the government putting more money in my pocket so that I could feed my brother would have meant the world to me. And it's those things, those ideas that we've been through some of those struggles as a team. I've experienced some of those financial struggles in my own personal life that drive us to make sure people get the respect they need and get the break that they need.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Singh, does the $40 billion deficit keep you up at night?
I am worried about how we treat people's money. I take it very seriously. It's an incredible responsibility to make sure we use the resources we're given, the honor that we have to invest in Canada in the right way. And I would make different choices than the Liberal government. There's certain things that we have to cut that we can't afford to do. We can't afford to be giving billions of dollars of fossil fuel subsidies to highly profitable oil and gas companies that have posted the biggest profits they've ever made in their history of some of these companies. We can't afford to keep on doing that. We can't afford to allow tax loopholes that many credible sources have said, like the Parliamentary Budget Office, make us lose billions of dollars of revenue. We can't afford to continue to allow those tax loopholes to continue. They rob us of revenue, and I would have ended that. Like other countries in Europe that put in place a profiteering tax or an excess profit tax on corporations making record profits while people are struggling, Europe, the European Union, Germany, Spain, and the UK have all put in place some form of excess profit tax. I think we need to do that here for the large corporate grocery chains, which are making the highest profits they've ever made while people are paying the highest prices for food, as well as other companies that are making these huge profits at a time when Canadians are struggling. Mm-hmm. So those are things that I would do differently so that we're more prudent and responsible with the resources that we've been trusted with.
And let me ask you this, we obviously had an election relatively recently. There's been some hint that if things don't go well, that there may be an election. Do you think Canadians want an election?
I would put it this way, that's for us not our priority. Our priority is how we can deliver help to Canadians right now. I think that should be the focus of parliamentarians. We've been sent into a minority government 2 times in a row now. The Canadian people have chosen 2 minority governments in a row, 2019 and 2021. And we respect that that's Canadians' choice. I wish they would have chosen me as Prime Minister, but I've got to respect the decision that Canadians made. And I'll keep on fighting to get to that point where we're making decisions in Canadians' interests every day. But in that meantime, we have respected that decision, and we think that what Canadians are telling us to do, instead of causing another election, they're telling us, get to work, deliver what we need, and that's what we're doing.
Take me to the minute, Mr. Singh, that you learned that Roxham Road was going to be dealt with the way it has been since last Friday, in terms of that signage going up and people would be arrested at that unofficial border crossing. Where was your mind when you heard that?
The starting position was that we knew that what was going on at Roxham Road, the irregular crossing, was no longer tenable. Not tenable for the people that put people that are already fleeing danger in their countries, asylum seekers and refugees. It was putting them in serious danger. It was also untenable because communities could not, in that case, the Roxham Road crossing, the local resources were just not adequate to deal with the number of people coming across. So it was untenable. We had said for a long time the solution should be to suspend the third country agreement. That safe third country agreement, by suspending it, would mean that people could just cross the border at normal points and then be processed as they would normally in a proper way. Their case would be seen, the merits of it would be assessed, and they would be assessed in that proper way. That would have been our preferred option. The government didn't do that. We think it's the current solution is going to potentially put people in more risk. It's going to cause potentially even more dangerous crossings. And we're worried about the dignity of these people that are already fleeing really dangerous situations. So we're worried that this is not actually going to solve the problem. It's going to make it worse. And that's something that's concerning.
Right, because the core issues of why people are crossing seem to just get swept under the rug, from my perspective anyway. During our chat today, Mr. Singh, we've heard the sweet sounds a couple of times of your daughter. Do you do things differently now that you're a dad?
I do actually. I find different moments throughout the day to make sure I spend time with her. I bring her to my weekly meetings pretty regularly. She comes with me to the meetings that we have with the other MPs, and they've come to look forward to those meetings, and I look forward to that time that I can squeeze in more moments with her in the day. And she does give me, I think about things in a different way. I think about more about the planet that I want to leave behind, or the world or the country I want to leave behind to her. I feel even more motivated to make sure that we're doing everything possible to make this country a place where people can thrive, where people can live their best lives. We named our daughter Anhad, and it means limitless, because we wanted her to have a limitless life. But we also want that for every kid, and we want that for every person. So this idea of trying to build a limitless future for people is something that really drives us.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mr. Singh. Jagmeet Singh joining us today, of course, leader of the federal NDP party. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
On Thursday's Daytime Ottawa, we'll meet Aero Meso Cafe and Bakery. They're going to be on the show showcasing some of their flavor-filled croissants and something called a cookie cake. Oh my goodness, it is going to be absolutely delicious on the show. We'll also tell you about a great nonprofit arts and crafts school, and we'll give you all the details on the latest production from Tactics. All that and more on Thursday's Daytime Ottawa.
Think it's okay to drive high? Think again. Drug-impaired driving is as illegal as drunk driving, and in Ontario, the penalties are the same. If police suspect you're driving under the influence of drugs of any kind, or a combination of drugs and alcohol, and you fail a roadside test, your license will be suspended immediately for up to 30 days. You'll pay a penalty of $198. And you can be charged with a criminal offense of impaired driving, the same as alcohol. Driving high is never okay.
I'm Julian Armour from Music and Beyond. Join us for a new show this spring on Rogers called Music and Beyond Presents.
Here comes the 67. They score! How's that for your first of the season? Another highlight reel goal. Perfect placement there on the one-time. What a play! Steps with a score!
He is is making a statement, isn't he?
Oh, that's a beauty of a shot from the freshman.
The OHL playoffs.
What a goal!
On Rogers TV.
Hi, my name is Arkantel and I'm part of Encore Ottawa. My set will be coming out this week, so I hope you can watch it and enjoy it. Thank you.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
And we're back on City News. It's Thursday. I always look forward to Thursdays because it means I get to spend time with Eric Elper, publicist and music commentator at that Eric Elper on Twitter. How are you, Eric?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Our topic this week absolutely blows my mind. I didn't even know about made-up musicians. So talk me through this fake bands, real songs. Where does this come from?
There's a TV show that's on Amazon right now called Daisy Jones and the Six, and it's based on a wonderful book, and it kind of mirrors the real-life experiences of a lot of bands in the 70s, but mostly Fleetwood Mac. But it's a fictional tale, and it's not only climbing the streaming charts in terms of viewership, but the songs in there aren't real. They're all made up by musicians and songwriters behind the scenes, but they're really, really good. And in fact, a lot of them are hitting the Billboard Hot 100. So that kind of gave me the idea to do songs that were on television shows or movies from made-up musicians that are probably so good that they're even climbing those charts too.
Okay, that's hilarious. So you are the music guy in this country. There's no two ways about it. But this never was on my radar at all. So where do you want to start? What song do you want to start with?
Let's start with the first one, and that's called "The Thing You Do" by The Wonders.
Okay.
And The Wonders is Wonders, but it also could be called The Wonders as in ONE, because this song was in a Tom Hanks movie called "The Thing You Do," and it's based on a pop band, all fictional, but the song is played 11 times in the film, and it details the history about the Wonders becoming literally a one-hit wonder and what happened. It's the most wholesome film that you'll ever watch, too, that has Tom Hanks in it.
Oh, I love it. Well, I love him. I love him so much. So the next one's really interesting for me because it's the song Shallow. I love this song.
This whole movie, A Star Is Born, was so good. It was the third remake of the film. But this one was a little bit different because obviously Lady Gaga is a real artist. And when Bradley Cooper signed on to do this film, he couldn't sing a note, but he used a couple of people as his as his North Star, as his guide. And one of them was Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam. So Bradley hung out with Eddie Vedder for a couple of weeks, just watching him do the things that he does, hoping to gather some of his mannerisms and sound like him. And that song Shallow that they do not only won the Best Original Song Oscar, but it hit the top 10 on Billboard and gave Bradley Cooper, strangely enough, his first Billboard hit.
That's so funny. I remember thinking, there's no way Bradley Cooper's singing. Like when I went to go see
sure.
it, I was
I'm
like, there's
sure
no way.
Bradley Cooper said to himself, there's no way I can sing too. But
That's so funny.
It's funny though, because look, you and I have talked to a lot of famous people.
Yeah.
I'm sure that if you cornered Bradley Cooper and said, look, you can take away 3 of your best films and trade it for a Billboard Hot 100 hit, which one would you want? Yeah. He would think it's so cool that the fact that he actually cracked those charts.
100%.
Yeah.
The next one's so interesting. So Hannah Montana, we know the history behind Hannah Montana, of course, Best of Both Worlds.
Yeah, with Hannah Montana, Miley Cyrus, the woman who ended up playing her, not only had hits through her Disney Channel show, but then of course Miley Cyrus ended up having multitudes of hits afterwards too. And it's one of those rare occasions where it was a actress that performed as a musician, had success, and then went on in real life to have success as her real person status. In fact, she's got the #1 song on the Hot 100 right now for the 9th straight weeks with Flowers. So I'm sure having her dad, Billy Ray Cyrus, in her corner didn't hurt at all either.
Absolutely. I can't stop listening to that song. I listened to it as I left the studio yesterday, actually. Fantastic. What about Light of Day? Light of Day is a song that was written by Bruce Springsteen, and it's from the movie Light of Day that starred Joan Jett as a rocker, no stretch there, and Michael J. Fox, who was this was his dream role. And it's not a bad movie. It's from 1987, and the song is still so good that not only does Joan Jett perform the song Light of Day in her shows, but so does Bruce Springsteen. So this is a song that's warm and means a lot to him as well. Wow, that's amazing. And this one's really interesting, On the Dark Side. So with the Bruce Springsteen tip too, when there was a movie that came out in 1983 called Eddie and the Cruisers, a lot of people who saw the movie thought it was based on a real life band called Eddie and the Cruisers, but it actually starred Michael Perret, and he was the actor, and John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band wrote all the music for it. They're a real band. They were actually a pretty decent bar band in New Jersey, Boston, New York area, and On the Dark Side were climbing the charts. Springsteen never really he didn't write any of the stuff, but it sounded really similar. In fact, there was talk about Bruce Springsteen suing the film because it sounded so eerie to it and close to it. When I was 13, I saw this film, and I swear to you, I thought it was such a real band that I was convinced that Eddie and the Cruisers were absolutely real. It's such a cool looking but a dark movie, though. It's just about a guy who rises to fame and then disappears at the top of the charts because he just couldn't handle it anymore. Interesting. The next one is Sugar Sugar. So is this the song I think it is, Sugar Sugar? Yeah, Sugar Sugar. I don't want to sing it for you. Honey, honey. Yeah, it's from the Archie show back in 1969. Wow. And when the record label decided to put out the song to capitalize on not only the TV show but the cartoon and the comic book, they sent it out without the name on the label because the record labels thought that if the radio stations knew it was from a cartoon band, they wouldn't play it. That they would be just too cool to play something as kids-like as a cartoon. So they sent it out with just the song and the title, but no name. And the stations loved it and started to play it, and the phones lit up. And nobody knew for a couple of weeks that it was actually from the Archies. And it became the #1 song in the summer of love, beating out the Beatles and Janis Joplin and the Doors in terms of sales and success on radio. Wow. You've done it again, Eric. I always learn something from you. It's always so much fun to take this journey through everything music with you. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And if you haven't seen Daisy Jones, go spend 10 hours watching it. It's well worth it. Good. Sounds good. Well, that sounds like a plan for the weekend. Perfect. Thanks for having me. We'll talk soon. Sounds great. Eric Elper joining us, publicist and music commentator. Follow him on that Eric Elper on Twitter. You will not regret it. He asks some really interesting questions, and I think he has hundreds of thousands of followers. He is very well known in this country, and we're so grateful that he spends that time with us every single Thursday talking about all things music. Well, now we're going to talk about all things lunch. We have a couple of people coming in to join us for lunch today to talk about those big news stories of the day. Laura Peck, Tim Powers, I'll be here. Well, hopefully you're here. Stay with us on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Here comes the 67. He scores! That for your first of the season.
Another highlight reel goal.
Perfect placement there on the one-time. What a play!
67's action on Rogers TV.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
After a night out with your friends, not having a plan for a safe ride home can leave you in a bad spot. You could end up riding in a police car, an ambulance, or a hearse. These unplanned modes of transportation can be a costly choice and do not take you home. Your plan could include a designated driver, a taxi, or public transit. Drink responsibly, choose your ride, and have a plan for a safe ride home.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and rogerstv.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
On the next Fit Over 50, join us for some floor exercises. We'll be working the core, we'll be exercising your full body and stretching. We'll see you then.
Hi, I'm Justice. And I'm Nia. And we believe dreams fuel revolutions. That's why we're engaging with Canadian icons and the causes they support. Join us for these inspiring conversations and find out how you can be revolutionary.
Is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It is Thursday, March 30th. Good afternoon. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, it is minus 14, feels like minus 11. In Smiths Falls, it is minus 3. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The commission tasked with investigating the Nova Scotia mass shooting is making more than 100 recommendations as it releases its final report today. The Mass Casualty Commission releasing the report nearly 3 years after 22 people were killed in and around the quiet seaside Nova Scotia community of Portapique. City News reporter Mark Hodgins reports.
This report is calling for major changes to RCMP oversight, processes, and culture. As well, it's calling for a national review of the public alerting system. The lack of an emergency alert during the 13-hour rampage was one of the harshest criticisms leveled against the RCMP. Commission Chair Michael McDonald also noting that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is intro for this report's release today and called on government to make change.
Our recommendations call for transformative change. They call for you to champion these recommendations so that our communities in Nova Scotia and Canada will be safer.
This commission was convened in late 2020 following public pressure on the provincial and federal governments to call a full public inquiry into the murders. Mark Hodgins, City News.
With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News weather specialist Denise Andriachi.
Sun and cloud today, a guaranteed high of 2 degrees. The winds are still breezy, gusts up to 50 kilometers per hour for Ottawa and Smiths Falls today. It's cold tonight, down to -9, so dress accordingly Friday morning. We are expecting some mixed precipitation tomorrow, at times just rain and at times just some snow. 5 to 10 millimeters, mixing with 2 to 4 centimeters, highs near +3. And then we climb to 10 degrees for Saturday. Rain to start, 5 to 10 millimeters, changing to some flurries as temps fall to -10 for Saturday night. This afternoon, a guaranteed high 2 degrees.
City News time, it's 12:02. The Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops says it is grateful the Vatican has rejected the doctrine of discovery. The Vatican says the 15th century doctrine didn't adequately reflect the rights of indigenous peoples. The Archbishop of Regina says it shows Pope Francis listened to indigenous people when he visited Canada for a 6-day tour last year.
Acknowledged that during the period of colonization, indigenous people suffered greatly, that their rights were trampled upon and their land was taken, that the papal bulls were part of that.
And the Vatican says the content of the papal bulls were manipulated for political purposes to justify immoral acts against indigenous peoples. And some of the world's biggest brains are calling for a pause in the development of thinking computers and AI. City News senior business editor Mike Eppel has a story.
More than 1,100 prominent tech experts like Elon Musk and Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak have signed an open letter calling for a 6-month pause in the development of AI, saying companies are moving too fast in rolling out powerful artificial intelligence technology. The petition, which was published Wednesday, is a response to San Francisco startup OpenAI's recent release of GPT-4. This is a more advanced successor to its widely used AI chatbot, ChatGPT. The letter warns that AI systems with human competitive intelligence can pose profound risks to society and humanity, from, quote, flooding the internet with disinformation and automating away jobs to more catastrophic future risks out of the realms of science fiction. A new study by Wall Street heavyweight Goldman Sachs predicts AI could lead to the loss of 300 million jobs, with computers replacing work currently done by humans. Mike Eppel, City News.
I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it's lunchtime, everybody. It sort of creeps up on me every day. It comes so fast here on City News. Hope you're having a great lunch. I've invited a couple people in and to join me at the table, and Laura Peck, senior partner at Transform Leaders, joins us. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Sam.
It's great to be here. We're joined by Tim Powers, Vice Chairman of Summa Strategies and Managing Director of Abacus Data. Hello, Tim.
Well, your lunches just got better, Sam. You got 2 Atlantic Canadians.
Well, there you go.
And one from Newfoundland. So where's the booze? Let's get going.
There you
here.
go. Looking for a little screech. Fantastic. Appreciate you both joining us today. Lots in the news, Laura, to talk about. I think this lunch could probably be 3 hours long. But let's start with the federal budget. Lots of people taking credit for a lot of things. Laura, where does the credit really lie?
Well, it's an NDP budget, that's for sure. I have to admit, they got me at dental care. When I come from a one dentist town, and when I moved to Ottawa, I had to have 3 root canals. So any money that I had saved went into dental care, so I get it. Jagmeet Singh and the NDP have been promising dental care. It's going to be super expensive, but they held fast and they got this in the budget. And from the wording, it looks like it's going to happen. But I am not counting on it. I never do, because the way these things are written, they're studying it, they're looking at it, whatever. But for sure, the NDP own this budget.
Tim, how about from your perspective, who should be taking credit here?
Yeah, I think Laura is on the right page there. Look, Mr. Singh is certainly taking that view, and he was out claiming credit yesterday. I guess what's fascinating for me is, does today's credit mean anything when an election comes? And that's the challenge Mr. Singh has, right? Can anybody, well, maybe the 3 of us can, but even that will be pushing it. Can anybody remember anything from last year's budget of great momentum? I mean, child care is dental care is a big one, to be sure, but you can be equally certain that the Liberals, when an election comes, are going to use their resources and their platforms to tell you they got dental care. They would have done it anyway, regardless of Mr. Singh. So today's credit is less important than who gets it when voters go to the polls.
Mm-hmm. Such an important point there. A big topic, of course, as well is Roxham Road. Here's what Jagmeet Singh had to say a little bit earlier today when I spoke to him on City News.
The starting position was that we knew that what was going on at Roxham Road, the irregular crossing, was no longer tenable. Not tenable for the people that they put people that are already fleeing danger in their countries, asylum seekers and refugees. It was putting them in serious danger. It was also untenable because communities could not, in that case, for the Roxham Road crossing, the local resources were just not adequate to deal with the number of people coming across. So it was untenable. We had said for a long time the solution should be to suspend the third country agreement. That safe third country agreement, by suspending it, would mean that people could just cross the border at normal points and then be processed as they would normally in a proper way. Their case would be seen, the merits of it would be assessed, and they would be assessed in that proper way.
Laura, what do you think about Mr. Singh's comments regarding Roxham Road?
Well, clearly something had to be done. Earlier, the Prime Minister had said that we welcome all refugees, but Roxham Road became a trigger point. And so now, we've got, 5,000 kilometers of border. My fear is that, and what'll probably happen is they will find another entryway. So it's very symbolic. They'll find another crossing point, and it is a very sad situation.
Mm-hmm. It really is, and I spoke with Mayor Justin Towndale, the mayor of Cornwall, and the pressure that has put on the budget in Cornwall, the resources in Cornwall. It really is very, very challenging for so many. And in my heart, of course, Tim, I'm a bit of a softie. I don't know if you know that, but my heart is for people that have traveled all this way trying to seek refuge here. Some coming from horrific situations. I'm always so worried that someone's going to lose their life trying to get here, and had they sort of gone through the right channels, that maybe it could have been a much better story. What are your thoughts in terms of Mr. Singh's comments today with me?
Well, just to be clear, my heart isn't filled with hate, Sam. So, I care about people too, and Mr. Singh's comments are look, again, I don't want to be dismissive of him. They're less important than, say, Minister Fraser or others on all of this. I think we do have a challenge, as we saw last summer, as we've seen since the beginning of Roxham Road, with our border system and our immigration system as a whole. It will benefit everybody to improve that. To be fair, I think some steps are being made on that. I think the deal that Canada and the U.S. announced during the Biden visit to improve the safe third country agreement is a step in the right direction. We are never going to stop because of the size of the border, illegal crossings, but we do have a responsibility, whether someone got here legally or illegally, to make sure that people are treated fairly and humanely. And it's not like we don't need people. The most encouraging thing I heard about Roxham Road came a few weeks ago when the Atlantic Premier said, you know what, we want to take some of the people that are coming in there because our population is aging. We think we can give them new lives and put them to work and have them contribute to the tax base in the region. That's the sort of stuff I think we have to look at as well as we address these problems.
Mm-hmm. Really,
I totally agree.
Really?
And they love it once they're there. You can see how, I'm from Cape Breton, you can see how much things have changed. They are populating the workplace, the stores, the churches. It's fantastic when they do come.
Really interesting to hear the comments there. I had this conversation with Mr. Singh a little bit earlier today, and here's another part of that interview.
We're really proud that we fought and forced the government to do this. In this, we have so much evidence, we have so much proof that just 2 years ago, the Liberals have voted against our idea, this exact same plan 2 times. In fact, we tried to bring it in 2 times in the minority government. They voted against it. And now we're making it happen. So it's really clearly the Democrats that forced the Liberals to do this. They would not have done this but for us. But more important than all of that is that I think about the seniors that I met at a round table, 2 of whom, a couple, a husband and a wife, who told me they've got so much pain in their teeth because they couldn't get dental care to prevent this, but they have to get root canal surgery. And it's going to cost them over $1,000 each. And they can't find the money for it, but they also can't put it off because it's hurting so much. And I told them I'm going to get you free dental care by the end of this year for seniors. Their eyes welled up with tears in the idea that they could actually get their teeth looked after. That's who I think about, and we're going to deliver for them.
So obviously, dental care, we think back to that supply and confidence motion. Laura, we know that this was top of the list for Mr. Singh. Do you think, essentially, when we look back, if we were to have some hindsight, look back, do you think that supply and confidence motion was the right move for Canadians?
I just think that dental care is health care. And, to this day, we all have to be concerned about those that can't pay, or even for small business. For us, it's very expensive to buy the kind of health insurance that will also cover dental care. So, people can use political maneuvers to get what they want. But let's hope that this is not just a line in the budget, that they actually follow through.
Mm-hmm. Tim, I'd love your take as well. Do you think it was good for Canadians, not the politicians, but do you think the supply and confidence motion in the end is the best thing for Canadians?
I think we can't render judgment. My initial reaction is not necessarily, and I think we can't render judgment based on one or two things that have been done, albeit them significant things, because there are other costs to all of this. I don't dispute the importance of dental care, but I'll just give you a very specific healthcare example. So that we saw from this budget. A number of weeks ago, the provinces, the feds, came together to announce what they hope will be an initial transformative undertaking for healthcare. $43 billion, not insignificant and important. Any of us, which is just about everybody who's got somebody in the healthcare system dealing with it, we know how bad things are. Has this agreement improved that? Not necessarily. But what was the more staggering number? $50 billion. We're paying $50 billion a year in debt servicing. That's $7 billion more than we're paying in health care. You can make an argument, as many have, that this agreement has seen a lot of economic redistribution. And again, maybe that's not a bad thing, but it comes with costs, and that cost, that debt servicing number that I gave you, Sam, it can't continue at that rate because it will mean other services will be lost. So I'll wait to render final judgment on the value of the agreement. It has brought us political stability, and it has brought us some policy that is popular with Canadians, but over time I think we have to look at what it cost us and what we lost as a consequence of it.
That's fair. Thank you, Tim, for that. We're going to come back after a short break here on City News. Laura Peck is going to stay with us for the lunch today, and Tim Powers is going to be here. I'll be here, and, well, we hope you're going to be here, too. Stay with us on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Little brown girl, hey, I'm Picasso Win Von Teef. I'm so happy to be involved with Encore Ottawa Season 3. I can't wait for you guys to see what I have in store for you.
At St. John Ambulance, we're all about community. We teach life-saving skills and provide community support through our volunteer services. All St. John Ambulance product sales and training registrations support these important services. Volunteer, donate, or enroll in a program today so we can continue to have an impact on our community. Visit sja.ca to learn more. At St. John Ambulance, we do more than save lives, we change lives.
Your visit isn't really necessary.
I'll judge for myself.
I know you're an MP, Miss McPhail, but a woman has never...
I am not leaving till I do. How can such a society be called civilized? If those appalling conditions don't change, that prison will explode!
Perhaps our lone lady member is too fragile to know what is normal in a prison.
Is this normal?
Her courage would lead to the overhaul of the entire Canadian penal system. Agnes MacPhail, Canada's first woman MP.
Here comes the 67. They score! How's that for your first of the season? Perfect placement there on the one-time. What a play! Steptoe scores!
He is making a statement, isn't he?
Oh, that's a beauty of a shot from the freshman.
The OHL playoffs.
What a goal!
On Rogers TV.
Hi, I'm Justice. And I'm Nia. And we believe dreams fuel revolutions. That's why we're engaging with Canadian icons and the causes they support. Join us for these inspiring conversations and find out how you can be revolutionary.
Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, I'll never forget walking into the newsroom on April the 19th of 2020. I was going to be on the air here in Ottawa as well as other markets, including Halifax. And of course, I was told about the horrific news of many lives being lost in Portapique at the hands of a gunman. The report has been brought down by the commission, and there's 130 recommendations. 75 of them point right to the RCMP. Their failures to the families, their failures in terms of communication, their failures when it was the incident was going on, and red flag failures about the gunman early on. This report we've been waiting for this report for a very long time. It's just been received today. I know my colleague Rob Snow has got a lot of interest in this story. I myself will be covering it tomorrow. We're having lunch today with Laura Peck and Tim Powers. Tim, this report has been on the minds of many Canadians. I can't even imagine how the families are feeling today. How important is this report today?
I think the report's important, but the remedies and the actions recommended are more important. I'm sure there will be some who will feel like, okay, this will help us heal, but going forward, a lot of those things need to be addressed. And this isn't, some of the failures around policing, and I haven't gone through the report, so I'll be careful what I say yet. Or I haven't gone through the report yet, so I'll be careful what I say now. But Laura will well know, as you will, Sam, it wasn't that many years ago. There was a shooting in New Brunswick. 3 people were killed, and there was criticism and levied at the RCMP that their officers weren't properly equipped and handled to deal with this. This was of a much greater magnitude. And again, I don't want to poop on the RCMP. I have tremendous respect for that institution, but we have to help the RCMP get and be better prepared for the realities of policing and the challenges that are there to make sure these things don't happen again. The last thing I'd say, it's unfortunate that accountability can't really be meted out here, because I'm making an assumption here, but a lot of blame, I would think, would rest with the former Commissioner Brenda Lucki, who had retired prior to this coming out, perhaps to avoid some of the scorn that's coming forward. But I hope accountability among some of the leaders of the day will be properly meted out, and proper leadership training and services will be available going forward.
Certainly the timing of Ms. Lucky's retirement was interesting. Laura, yourself, what do you think about this report today? And I'm thinking about all the people in Nova Scotia.
Well, obviously, I have not read the report yet, but the only one that I'm really blaming here is the guy that murdered those people. This guy, he was trouble for a long time. There were so many early signs. This guy was bringing guns in. He was terrifying people. He was terrorizing people long before he shot all those people. And the other problem was that when the murders first started, a tweet went out. Well, we in Nova Scotia, and I think Newfoundland also, we listen to radio. The first thing, we don't turn on Twitter right away. My mother is not on Twitter, but she's got her radio on. That's how we get up and start every day. I think it would have helped. It had that if somebody had gone to the radio station and said, listen, get this out right away, just putting it on Twitter is that's more of a useful kind of thing. But where we're from, radio really dominates. And so let's bring it right back to that guy and how if they could have pinned that guy down, you can tell I'm in a rage about that guy.
Me too. And to be honest with you, I mean,
Gabriel something, or I can't remember his last name.
Gabriel Wortman. I was, and to that point about radio and the importance of radio, some people call it a little bit old school, but it works. And, like I said, I was on air with our sister station, News 95.7 at the time. I was updating listeners. Of course, I was in other markets as well. But here's the irony, Tim. Here's the irony, is all I read out that day was RCMP tweets because I didn't trust anything else. We had a couple of producers in here. We were really wanting to make sure we didn't we didn't say anything that was false. We wanted to make sure we gave people what they needed. But I followed the RCMP tweets. So the irony is definitely there.
Well, we have to do both, don't we? We are in the communications business, and that's what I'm saying. It would have helped. Yes, of course, Twitter's very important, but get it on the radio, whatever you have to do. But this guy, even when you drove from the airport into Halifax, he had this weird sign with these huge overgrown lips, and people in that neighborhood were trying to do something about even his signage. It just goes on and on and on about this personality of this guy. He was trouble.
And Tim, the responsibility as well of the media, and I put myself in that as well, and our City News in that. I mean, there's a responsibility that we have to use this voice, not for just lovely chats like we're having today, but use this voice to actually talk about danger and put people in the situation, whether that be a hurricane or whether it be this situation. I mean, the media has a responsibility.
Yeah, I agree with that, though. I bias like Laura a little bit on the Atlantic media, and particularly those in the radio space, because I dabble in that space in Newfoundland on VOCM, and we use that channel often to communicate to Newfoundlanders and Labradorians because it is the place they go to. I don't know if the way the media covered things had spoken of societal issues and challenges influenced or didn't influence Wortman at all. I think the media did, in these circumstances, with the information that it had, the best that it could. The other challenge, of course, just to get really practical, if I remember correctly, this was happening over a weekend night. Now, so Saturday night going into Sunday morning, you wouldn't necessarily, in fairness again, have the same listenership, though to Laura's point, if one family started to hear it, you can be damn sure the telephone network will be working saying, turn on the radio, turn on the radio, turn on the radio. So I know RCMP communications were reviewed in all of this, and again, perhaps there was a complete misunderstanding of how best to inform people, but I don't think that in the end, I don't know, I haven't read the report. I hope that in the end didn't really make a material difference in the damage that Wortman did. It was the front end stuff, as Laura alluded to, that perhaps more could have been done.
And I just want to say I didn't prepare you to talk about that. I did give you advance notice. It's breaking news here on City News as well. So you've been both very, very gracious to talk about something that I know you haven't had an opportunity to read. So thank you for that. Appreciate it very much. Laura Peck, Senior Partner at Transform Leaders. Thank you, Laura, as always. Tim Powers, thank you very much. Vice Chairman of Summa Strategies and Managing Director of Abacus Data. Thanks for joining me for lunch today.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
We're getting ready for the OBJ Business Lunch. We're going to talk about all things business. We're going to be talking about a really interesting intersection between business and charity. So that's going to be an interesting conversation. We're also going to be talking with Sue Pitchforth. She is a decorator. We're going to be talking all things decor. We're going to be talking a little bit about your backyard as well. We look forward to that conversation. And speaking about your backyard, you may need the Poo Crew. Yeah, we're going to talk to the Poo Crew when we come back on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, tacos aren't only for Tuesday. I make a Mexican taco feast for a crowd.
Summer days, summer nights, lots of things to do, places to go, and people to see. If you're having a few drinks, be sure to plan ahead and get home safely. We don't want to pick you up. Drinking drivers risk injuries to themselves and others and take chances with their license, their jobs, and their future. Remember what's at stake and choose your ride, whether you're the driver, the passenger, or the party host. Thanks for supporting sober driving. I hope we never meet.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more.
Once upon a time, in a nursery rhyme, there were 3 bears. 1, 2, 3 bears. And they went a-walking in the cool woods a-talking while their porridge began.
Rogers TV invites you to let your imagination roam as we present Ottawa Storytellers. Each week we'll present a collection of original creative stories and inspirations for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers on Rogers TV.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It is Thursday, March 30. Good afternoon. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa and in Smith Falls, -3 feels like -11. Here's what's making news this hour. Following 7 months of testimony and reviewing thousands of pages of evidence, the Mass Casualty Commission has released its report on the 2020 mass shooting in Nova Scotia. The report finds there were a large number of failings on the part of the RCMP, including a lack of preparation, lack of communication, and no leadership during the crisis. The report says that a massive external review of the entire RCMP is needed, and the Federal Public Safety Minister should identify responsibilities that could be better handled by other police agencies. It also finds that the RCMP had years of warning signs regarding domestic violence from the killer, Gabriel Wortman. All in all, 22 people were killed and 3 others were injured before Wortman was gunned down by the RCMP. Meanwhile, the OPP detachment in Kilalo asking for the public's help locating a missing 42-year-old man. And Sean, who police says also goes by Ryan, was last seen in Kilolo on Sunday, March 26. He's said to also frequent the Ottawa area. He is 5 inches, 7 feet tall, has blue eyes and brown hair. A picture and full description is on our website, ottawa.citynews.ca. If you spot him or you know where he is, you're asked to contact police. City News time is 12:32. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Business Lunch on City News, brought to you by the Ottawa Business Journal.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, I don't know if you follow Ryan Reynolds on Twitter, but I do. We adore Ryan Reynolds. Well, he just posted a picture, and he's in Ottawa, and he has a picture with our mayor, Mark Sutcliffe, and there's another gentleman in the picture, and I'm desperately trying to find out who this is. We think he's from the Remington Group. Our crack research team is working on that right now, but Mayor Mark Sutcliffe has the biggest smile on his face I've ever seen posing with Ryan Reynolds. So a very exciting day today in the city. I wanted to speak today to Dr. Jacob Brower, marketing professor and CSR expert at Smith School of Business. Hello, Dr. Brower.
Hi, Sam. How are you?
Thank you so much for spending time with us. This is something I'm very passionate about when I'm not on City News, hosting this wonderful show. I work in the fundraising space, in the nonprofit space, so I'm very, very interested in this particular topic, which is really the intersection between business and charity. Walk me through a little bit of your work.
Yeah, I mean, so I've spent my career looking at CSR issues related to firms and really sort of how the expectations are transitioning over time amongst the general public, amongst your customer base, your employees, et cetera. So really just trying to see how these trends are shifting over time and what that means for business and business managers. Because I think,
often, certainly from a nonprofit perspective, you take a food bank, for instance, and, they look for help maybe from financial institutions like Scotiabank or RBC or TD. And, and they sort of, kind of go through the process of the granting process and all of that. And we hear that they've got, incredible profits, which of course that's what the shareholders want. But the giving back portion sometimes is just not equal to what they should be doing from the perspective of nonprofits.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a few things going on there sort of behind the scenes there. I mean, on the one hand, you do have these initiatives by some of these large companies to dedicate some proportion of their profits. So I think the big banks at something like 1% of their pre-tax profits, which I think there's a few issues associated with that. But, that those kinds of donations are expected nowadays, right? That companies are expected to put those donations out there. But, what's interesting is that, this survey, for example, that was recently released from the Smith School of Business, is looking at Canadians believing that businesses should dedicate a lot more of their profits to these important social issues. In fact, the survey results suggest it's up to 21%, which I think maybe a little bit of an overestimate perhaps of what is really possible. But this idea that, companies coming out and saying they'll donate 1% of their profits, where is that claim landing, and how does that land with their customer base? And I think the reality is what the general expectation is that companies are being looked to more and more to sort of try to address social problems. And so not only are they being asked to maybe donate more money to some of these not-for-profits, but the results of the same survey indicate that people are now looking to businesses more to directly solve social problems than nonprofits these days. That they, instead of just donating money to nonprofits, they actually expect them to go further and go beyond just those simple donations.
Is that fair of us in your mind, Dr. Brower?
So I'm coming out of a business school, but I'm a CSR researcher. So I always sort of have two hats on in this thing. I mean, the reality is, I think the perspective today is that many people see these organizations taking these massive profits and they say, what's in it for us? And, more and more the what we call like the social license to operate, the ability of firms to continue to operate gets questioned when people see these massive profit-taking efforts happening and firms not really giving back. And especially when firms' activities are causing some sort of social harm or environmental harm, whatever it might be, where they see those things not necessarily related to forward progress in society, that there is an increasing expectation that firms are taking on some of these initiatives to try to alleviate the pressure that they create through their profit-seeking efforts.
Because we know that typically when a big corporation makes a donation, they like to have the PR around it. I have worked with a number of companies in my time where they've given quite large gifts, whether it be $100,000 was one that was recently done, and they didn't want any sort of public recognition of that. So I always find that really interesting as well, that sometimes they get just as much sort of customer love about the fact that they've made this gift, but when they don't publicize it, then you sort of think more that is philanthropy as opposed to sort of that goodwill, and we want to tell everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing. I think more and more as these things become expected of organizations to be doing. So, donating 1% of their profits, and there's more and more firms doing it. I think the value that plays out in the marketplace is decreasing. And in fact, what's really interesting, I think, is that there are some firms that are almost actively trying not to talk about the things that they're doing because they're actually making changes that should make society better off or make some group of customers better off. So, for example, I remember years ago I had a conversation with a senior vice president at Frito-Lay. It was around the time that they took their Fritos and their Tostitos chips and reduced the number of ingredients that went in. So it was just corn oil, and salt. But they didn't want to talk about it because they were actually afraid of getting backlash from their sort of established customer base for talking about what they were doing at all. And I think the benefit, the upside of trying to attract customers to those kinds of products or those kinds of offerings just doesn't really materialize. And I think we've got a more and more savvy population of people who are demanding these kinds of things from firms, that when a firm comes out with an inauthentic initiative that just doesn't resonate really with the audience in terms of its authenticity, that they do run the risk of possibly getting themselves in trouble. So I guess there's some amount of calculation, I guess, on the part of organizations to decide, do I want to donate this money and make it very public? Because many companies are now getting criticized. If they donate $100,000 but spend $500,000 publicizing that, somebody's going to find those stats and they're getting that thrown back in their face. Mm-hmm. So I think it's becoming... I think that there's still a lot of space for philanthropy by organizations. I think that that's something that is expected of firms, that they're doing something to give back, but it's not enough anymore. That basically people are looking for something well beyond just throwing money at things or saying the right thing, that they're really expecting firms to take some sort of action.
Well, and as somebody that's filled out countless, applications for monies, the accountability sometimes back for a small organization for a relatively small donation. A lot of nonprofits don't have the sort of the bandwidth to report and I don't mind reporting on. Obviously, I want to report and tell them how we use the money, but sometimes the reporting back is so onerous that it's not worth the money. Right. So there's got to be some sort of, I've always wanted to have this conversation with someone, and no one wants to have it with me, Jacob, but to have that conversation about, how much strain are you putting on nonprofits by also trying to give nonprofits money? And I know that might sound strange to people that aren't in the sector, but do you understand what I'm saying there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's something my wife does a lot of work in the nonprofit sector as well. So this is dinner table conversation. Our children are going to be, polluted for life on this perspective, but on the nonprofit side, I mean, one of the big pressures that keeps happening is, these public ratings of nonprofit organizations, mm-hmm. where one of the big statistics they always talk about is percentage of overhead. But the reality is, for these nonprofit organizations to get the funds in the first place actually requires overhead, right? You have to have people and staff to do these things. So it's sort of this catch-22 situation that to get to these bigger grants, to get to these grant organizations, takes a huge amount of very professional staff to be able to continue to get money to advance the social mission. But every time they invest in those things to become better at being a good nonprofit organization, what we see is that their percentage overhead goes up, and all of a sudden they get dinged in all of these ratings things, and then the dollars start to decline that come into them from sort of individual donors. So sort of managing that tension is really challenging. And I know there's a lot of smaller not-for-profits that really do struggle to have people that, a lot of these organizations, the people that are involved are there because it's close to their heart, that it's part of their own personal moral values that they want to be there. But that may not necessarily be that they are, their love is there, but maybe the skill set that it takes to manage this and have professional staff that manage these things is really hard, right? Mm-hmm. It's a very challenging situation, and I 100% agree with you that, it's interesting to hear you say that these nonprofits are struggling just to keep up with the reporting requirements for the money that they're getting in, which takes attention away from making the change, which is, I think, one of the big challenges with the philanthropic sector right now, and especially corporate donations. They expect nonprofits to act and measure things the same way that corporations do, which is a challenge.
It's a huge challenge. And quite honestly, there's a massive drain on talent in the nonprofit sector. I mean, I help hire a lot of fundraisers as well. It's very hard to find talent that want to, do it for the dollars that are being offered. Mostly this is heart work. But does the name Dan Pallotta mean anything to you, Dr. Brower?
It's not a name I'm familiar with.
Okay.
Sorry.
So no, that's fine. So Dan Pallotta is a fundraiser from the United States, and he did an incredible TED Talk and talks about exactly the issues that we're talking about in terms of overhead. And he really opens up. And I always recommend that donors, I always ask board members to watch it as well. It's a TED Talk. Dan Pallotta, you and your wife, when the kids are in bed tonight, pull it up and watch it. And I encourage all our listeners as well to watch it. It really gives you a different perspective on what charities are going through and talent and just the way that we're operating nonprofit sector. I really appreciate it. I could talk to you all day, by the way, just so you know.
Yeah, I mean, sort of just one last comment on that front. And I think that's Canadians, same survey indicates that Canadians are expecting firms to actually do something, not just donate money. And I think that's where partnerships between corporations and nonprofits, rather than it being just sort of a one-way flow of funds with reporting responsibilities coming back, maybe firms could dedicate some of their dedicated business type people to help these organizations on that side while they continue to fulfill their mission. So more and more customers and stakeholders are expecting to see action. They want to see firms doing something and using their power for good. And I think that might be a path forward. And we're seeing more and more of those kinds of models happening these days.
Very well said. Thank you so much, Dr. Jacob Brower, joining us today, marketing professor and CSR expert at Smith School of Business. Appreciated that talk. A few minutes ago, I mentioned that Ryan Reynolds is in town. He's been visiting a little bit. As we know, he's got an interest in purchasing the Ottawa Senators with a conglomerate group there, the Remington Group. Beautiful picture on Twitter of our Mayor Mark Sutcliffe, Chris Brady on one side, president of the Remington Group, and on the other side, well, of course, it's Ryan Reynolds. We've never seen the mayor smiling that much, so I'm sure he's anxious to have some conversations with Ryan Reynolds. We're going to come back on City News on the OBJ Business Lunch. Come on back, everyone.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hi, my name is Arkantel and I'm part of Encore Ottawa. My set will be coming out this week, so I hope you can watch it and enjoy it. Thank you.
On Thursday's Daytime Ottawa, we'll meet Aeromesso Cafe and Bakery. They're going to be on the show showcasing some of their flavor-filled croissants and something called a cookie cake. Oh my goodness, it is going to be absolutely delicious on the show. We'll also tell you about a great nonprofit arts and crafts school, and we'll give you all the details on the latest production from Tactics. All that and more on Thursday's Daytime Ottawa.
It's closing time, and you stayed out longer than you planned. So now you can't drive, and the buses have stopped running. You could always call your girlfriend. Or maybe your roommate? What about your best friend? You could just dial 1-888-TAXI-GUY or use the Taxi Guy app. The call and the app are free, and they both connect you to a local cab company to bring you home safely. Visit arrivealive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive, drive sober.
There we go.
Hey, going back in, okay?
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
Here comes the 67. They score! How's that for your first of the season?
Another highlight reel goal
the one-time. What a play! Steps one, scores!
He is making a statement, isn't he?
Oh, that's a beauty of a shot from the freshman.
The OHL playoffs.
What a goal!
On Rogers TV.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Here comes the 67. He scores! How's that for your first of the season? Another highlight reel goal. Perfect placement there on the one-time. What a play!
67's action on Rogers TV.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Thank you so much for joining us here on City News. This is the OBJ Business Lunch. We talk about all things business. The Ottawa Business Journal. I don't know if you're checking it out or not. I hope you are. Lots of great information there. And I'm an insider. Maybe you want to become an insider too. Lots of great articles there that you get access to. I wanted to spend some time today with Sue Pitchforth. I met Sue a little bit earlier this week, and I just had to share all her great talents on City News. Hi, Sue.
Hi, Sam. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Oh, it's wonderful. Your company's called Decor Therapy Plus. Describe a little bit about why we have decor and therapy in the same sentence.
Yeah, it sounds interesting, doesn't it? There is definitely a story there. Obviously, I'm a decorator, designer, and been in the business over 20 years. And very early on, I noticed that when I was going into people's homes, what we were doing together to create a home that they love really is therapy. It's emotional therapy. It changes the energy in your home. So when I was doing some rebranding, the words decor therapy came up very quickly. And then the plus is all the other awesome things that I do, like, you know, being interviewed by you and speaking at the home shows and doing workshops. So there is a method to my madness, for sure.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I've been following a little bit of your work, and you're so right about the space we live in. And sometimes we can get weighed down by stuff, Sue. And when someone comes in from the outside and says, what if we moved this there? What if we got rid of this piece of furniture, whatever? It can really just, especially this time of year, we think about spring, it can really, provide that boost we need.
Absolutely. I hear it every day when I go into people's homes and we're finished our consultation, where we actually do exactly what you say. We edit, we move things around. People say, they look at me and they go, well, why didn't we do this years ago? You know, we all get into a rut and life gets in the way.
Absolutely, life gets in the way. I am just brand new into Richmond. I just moved, as you may recall, in December. So I haven't had a year there. I've got gravel everywhere, mud everywhere. But when I look out into my backyard, I have a dream of what I envision back there. How would someone like yourself, Sue, be able to help me achieve what I'm hoping out there?
Oh my gosh, you know, it's so great that you have a dream, because that is a place to start. And so what we would do is we would sit down and we would basically chat. I'd, listen to what your dream is. I'd ask you a ton of questions, because really, it doesn't matter if we're doing the inside of our home or working on the outside. We're spending our hard-earned money, and we want to make sure that we're making the best decisions. And especially with an outdoor space, with you just moving into your home, it's a blank canvas. So where do you start? Mm-hmm. Do you want to have a dining area and a conversation area? How big of a garden do you want, or do you want gardens that basically maintain themselves? So there's all these questions that, is sort of like the nitty-gritty of the plan. And then we sit down and we figure out, okay, so where is the best place for your gardens and your deck? And then it all comes together. And then, the landscaper, the contractor that you hire, they put your dream into play.
Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking too about my two little mini Labradoodles, Beasley and Lucy. They're gonna want a space out there too. So it's making sure it works for the whole family.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. Mm-hmm. And your family and friends that come over too. It's not just your space. It's really an extension of the indoor of your home. So it's really the outdoor space when our weather, hopefully very shortly, changes.
Mm-hmm, for sure. I'm holding out hope, Sue. Thank you so much for spending time with us, Sue Pitchforth from Decor Therapy Plus. Check her out. She's got some great stuff on Facebook. Definitely worth a visit. Now, I was just talking about my mini Labradoodles with Sue. So Beasley and Lucy. Beasley actually turns 3 years old today. I can't believe it. And Lucy's about 2.5. And they certainly keep us hopping. I wanted to spend time today with Daniel Diamond talking about his business, which is Poo Crew. And that brings me to my Labradoodles. How are you, Daniel?
I'm doing great.
Great.
It's a crappy day here, but that's what we're always looking for.
There you go. Absolutely. I get that. So I've got, of course, these Labradoodles, and, we're cleaning up after them. But maybe, there's times where we missed something, or, lots of people in their backyard maybe let the winter go and then they clean up in the spring. Is that what Poo Crew does?
That is exactly what we do. Busy individuals or people who can't physically do it themselves. Maybe you've got a disability, or you just work late and you get home and it's dark.
Mm-hmm. And so how did the business start, Daniel? Like, did you wake up one day and said, I'm going to start this business?
I honestly look for lots of opportunities in business. I'm kind of an entrepreneur, but I started this business in Regina 12 years ago, and we are slowly expanding across Canada.
That's amazing. Are you in the Ottawa area right now?
Yes, we are. We're very excited. We opened last year and we did spring cleans. So we're looking to attain some new weekly clients and have people never have to deal with poop again.
Okay, so what's the idea then? Is it if you get the weekly service, is that somebody's coming every Tuesday and they clean your backyard and you don't have to think about it?
Exactly. And as well, right now, with everything starting to hopefully melt soon, we're going to be able to maintain the yard as the poop starts to appear, as those bombs start to arrive. Mm-hmm. We'll send our bomb squad in and take care of it for you as the snow melts.
Is it hard to hire people to do this work? Do people want to become part of the Poo Crew?
Well, during the pandemic, it was a little difficult, but we find lots of people, as we're kind of like the Uber of pooper scooping, and so we've got people that we can work really well with, like flexible schedules and families. And it's just a flexible job where people get to be outside, meet some dogs. So you'll enjoy outdoor weather work. We also look to pay a fair wage. So we take care of our technicians so that they can take care of our clients.
Our clients, when somebody calls you for the first time, are they even surprised that this service exists? Like, do people? And that's one of the reasons I want to have you on, is because I think people don't even know that this is an opportunity for them to maybe take some stuff off their list.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely new to a lot of people. The business concept has been around for about 30 years. However, my niche and passion is marketing, so we get people right on the website, and that's how people find out about us. And we actually have steps to teach people on our website how to sign up and what to expect. So you can sign up on our website in under 5 minutes and get the exact package and your needs met for everyone's unique situation or amount of dogs, or if they want winter service or summer service or service all year round. So it's a full suite of information there for people that have never heard of a service like this before.
Well,
lots of questions are answered.
That's really interesting. And when you go to a party or something and someone says to you, "What do you do?" How do you respond? I need to know.
I own a specialty lawn care company is what I usually start off with, and hopefully that ends the entire night of talking about my pet waste business.
That's amazing.
Being that I've done this for 12 years, it's that conversation gets old, but taking care of the clients doesn't. We've got a lot of really cool clients that we get to meet, and a lot of it's really cool to be able to be part of other people's lives and help people that maybe just had a baby or something.
No, for sure.
They find the service.
Yeah. I get it. I mean, I was involved in a sort of I'll be honest, I broke my ribs. So, that was really hard for me. And so when I think about, all of the challenges people might be facing, whether it's, aging parents and they've got a dog or, a neighbor with a new baby, I mean, all those things. So thank you so much, Daniel, for joining us today and talking everything Poo Crew.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Daniel Diment joining us today. We talk about all sorts of businesses here on the Business Lunch. Today's was lots of fun, lots of different topics for you. We're getting ready to obviously bring you the news of the afternoon. Lots of news to be discussed. So stay with our news crew. I'm going to be back here tomorrow. I'll be filling in for David Smith again on the Talk Back Hour. It is the Friday free-for-all, so start to think about what you want to call me about tomorrow. I'm Sam Laprade. Thanks so much for spending time with us here on City News.
You've been listening to the Sam Laprade Show.